Chapter 1029. It was unknown how many experts who hadn't shown themselves in a long time had jumped out. The battle between Eastern Emperor Xian Jiyu and Southern Mountain God Emperor Kang Xiao had shaken the entire heavenly realm. Although there were many experts in the heavenly realm, it had been a long time since a battle between Emperor Xian and God Emperor Kang Xiao had occurred. Existences of this level were usually used as deterrents. However, it was different this time. The legendary palace of the moon deities had appeared. No one could sit still. The old antiques of the heavenly realm were even more envious. Everyone wanted to obtain the inheritance of the extreme Tao saint. However, the Eastern Emperor Xian Jiyu wanted to monopolize the palace of the moon deities. This was tantamount to becoming the enemy of all the forces in the heavenly realm. It was an incomparably crazy move to contend against all the forces of the heavenly realm by himself. However, the Eastern Emperor Xian Jiyu had actually done such a crazy thing. Could it be that Yuan Jiyu has really taken that step? Otherwise, how would he dare? Some of the old antiques of the heavenly realm hesitated. These people had lived for countless years, and some were even characters of the late Desolate era. Their background was so great that even Emperor Xian and the God Emperor had to be wary of them. After Emperor Xian Jiyu expelled the Southern Mountain God Emperor, the entire Eastern Earth calmed down. However, everyone knew that this was only a temporary calm. A greater storm was about to arrive. At this time, Jiyu Fei and the others were guests at the ancestral Emperor Mountain. Jiyu Fei and the golden spiritualist ape Yuan Hong had a feeling of regret for not having met each other earlier. Their temperaments were very similar, and they appreciated each other's talents. This was a friendship forged from fighting. The entire ancestral Emperor Mountain covered a radius of millions of miles. It was a small world independent of the larger world, and there was only Yuan Hong in this small world. The golden spiritualist ape clan was so small that they didn't even have a servant. Ever since the disappearance of the old sacred ape, Yuan Hong had been sleeping in this small world for countless years. It was only 1,000 years ago that he woke up and walked out of this small world. There was an ancient palace on the ancestral Emperor Mountain. It was the ancestral court of the golden spirit apes. Legend had it that it had been built by the primogenitor of the golden spirit apes at the beginning of the world. This ancient temple had the immortal Tao patterns laid down by the golden spirit ape primogenitor. It could exist in this world for a long time, indestructible and resistant to decay. Jiyu Fei and the others were not invited into the ancestral court by Yuan Hong. Beside the ancestral Emperor Mountain, there were a few other spiritual mountains. Yuan Hong's cave dwelling was located halfway up one of them. Jiyu Fei and the others were currently chatting happily with Yuan Hong in the cave dwelling. Brother Jiyu, if I'm not mistaken, you should be the successor of the martial progenitor, Yuan Hong suddenly asked Jiyu Fei. Yuan Hong was the son of the elder sacred ape and a saint's son. Naturally, he knew many secrets of the world. He had survived the terrible upheavals of that period. Yuan Hong's experience was very similar to that of the old tortoise. The old tortoise was caught into the virtual sky world and escaped the upheavals that swept through the three realms at the end of the Great Desolate Age. On the other hand, Yuan Hong was personally sealed in the ancestral Emperor Mountain by his father. Day and night, his body was tempered by the metal essence of heaven and earth, and he also escaped that upheaval. When they came out again, the world had changed. There were no saints in the world. Successor of the martial progenitor, Jiyu Fei was a little surprised that Yuan Hong could actually see through his background. He was indeed the successor of the martial progenitor because he had obtained the great path imprint of the martial progenitor. I just obtained the inheritance of the martial progenitor by chance, Jiyu Fei said with a nod. There was no need to hide this kind of thing. Jiyu Fei also didn't need to hide it. Yes, I think so too. There are no saints in the world now. Even someone as strong as the martial progenitor has probably disappeared. Yuan Hong looked a little sad. His father was also a great saint of the golden spirit apes. He was a sacred ape. There are no saints in the world. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Could it be that the saints had fallen in the post-primitive era? This was absolutely impossible. That was an indestructible supreme saint. How could he have fallen? However, there were no saints in the world today. The saints had already become a legend. What exactly happened? Jiu Fei asked Yuan Hong. Xiaoqing, He Tian, Bulon and Chu Liuqing pricked up their ears. They also wanted to know what had happened in the past to make the saints disappear. I also don't know. I was sealed in the ancestral Emperor Mountain's metal element ancestral vein by my father. I have no idea what happened outside. Yuan Hong also didn't know what kind of earth-shattering event had happened. Later on, the laws of heaven and earth were changed. The primitive world collapsed and formed the current human world. According to some of the old antiques who survived the end of the primitive world, the heaven world was also very dangerous at that time. The entire heaven world had almost collapsed and many areas had fallen into the unknown void. Some said that after the upheaval, the heaven world had shrunk to a third of its original size. The old antiques in the heaven world had no idea what had happened, but it seemed that some unknown existence had launched a devastating attack on the heaven world. Those who had survived the primitive world all agreed that the source of all the chaos was the primitive world, and that the primitive world's turmoil had affected the heaven world. This was the first time Jiu Fei and the others had heard of such a secret from Yuan Hong. No one said a word. Only He Tian looked pensive. Just as everyone was digesting Yuan Hong's words, Yuan Hong seemed to sense something. He stood up and walked out of the cave. Seeing this, the crowd also stood up and followed Yuan Hong out. What's wrong? Jiu Fei asked. Yuan Hong pondered for a moment, then said, nothing. A friend is coming. I'll go receive him. I'll be right back. With that, Yuan Hong shot into the sky and flew toward the entrance of the ancestral emperor realm. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared over the horizon. The Golden Spirit Ape Clan's battle prowess was unparalleled, and so was their speed. Who the hell has come? Everyone was puzzled. One should know that Yuan Hong was the only one in the ancestral emperor realm. Anyone who could find their way here was definitely not simple. Soon enough, a powerful aura appeared in the distance and rapidly approached. Then, a huge black bird appeared in everyone's line of sight. Everyone was shocked when they saw the bird. It was a divine bird the size of a mountain, covered in pitch-black feathers. When it spread its wings, it looked like a dark cloud descending from the sky. Great Peng. Erebus couldn't help being moved. That divine bird was actually the legendary Great Peng. It was truly inconceivable. How could such an existence appear in front of them? What? Chapter 1030. Boom. The divine beast's aura covered the sky as it surged forward. Everyone's expression changed, especially Xiaoqing and Bulon. They also had the bloodline of divine beasts. Xiaoqing and Bulon's bloodline had already awakened, so they were also divine beasts. When divine beasts encountered each other, they would definitely sense each other. Xiaoqing and Bulon both felt their blood boiling. The other party was very strong, so strong that they wanted to submit. Roar. Little Qing let out a furious roar. Dragon Qi surged from its body, and a layer of azure dragon scales appeared on its skin. Rays of azure light flowed around it. It was actually going to transform back into its original form. Bulon's body also erupted with powerful fire elemental power. Divine flames appeared on his body, and the image of a fire Qilin could be faintly seen on his body. Bulon's strength was stronger than Xiaoqing's, but he didn't show any signs of transforming back to his original form. The legendary Great Peng divine bird? Jiu Fei's pupils involuntarily shrank when he saw that huge bird appear on the horizon. Although the other party's aura was powerful, he wasn't afraid at all. This divine bird's strength was on par with Yuan Hong's. It should be Yuan Hong's friend. To be able to befriend Yuan Hong, this fellow must have a very powerful background. This isn't a real Great Peng. It's just an illusion. He Tian opened his yin-yang divine eyes. In his left eye, there seemed to be a black divine moon floating, while in his right eye, there was a dazzling sun flashing. The power of yin and yang interweaved, and the aura of the great Tao circulated in He Tian's eyes. The yin-yang divine eyes could see through all illusions. 1,000 miles away in the sky, a black-clothed young man was walking over with Yuan Hong. He was a young man with a pair of sharp eyes. The youth emitted a powerful aura, and above his head, the image of a black great peng the size of a mountain appeared. "Brother Yuan, I didn't expect you to have a guest," the green-robed youth said to Yuan Hong. They didn't stop and continued towards Yuan Hong's cave. With just a few steps, Yuan Hong and the black-clothed young man arrived before Yuan Hong's abode. "Hehe, we just got to know each other today. Come, let me introduce you." As he spoke, Yuan Hong and the black-clothed young man descended from the sky and arrived before Jiyu Fei and the others. True Dragon Bloodline and Fire Qilin Bloodline. When he saw Xiaoqing and Balon, the black-clothed young man's expression turned serious. Although he had sensed the aura of divine beasts coming from Xiaoqing and Balon from afar, he did not know what kind of divine beasts they were. Golden-winged rock. Hei Tian also saw through this black-robed youth's background. He was an expert from the Sky Rock race. According to legend, their ancestor was a sky rock born from heaven and earth. The feathers of the golden-winged rock weren't black. This black-clothed young man's bloodline didn't seem to be pure, but it was still frightening. This divine beast was very powerful. This is Jiyu Fei. Brother Jiyu is the martial ancestor's successor. Yuan Hong introduced both parties. "What?" When the black-clothed young man heard this, his sharp eagle-like eyes immediately turned vertical. His eyes flickered and the aura on his body became even more powerful. A powerful aura spread out, and Xiaoqing and Balon found it a little difficult to resist. Chu Liuqing was in an even worse state. He had already collapsed on the ground, his body trembling, and he was just short of wetting his pants. Roar. Xiaoqing let out a low roar and finally couldn't help but reveal his true form. A green dragon appeared in front of Yuan Hong's cave and a powerful dragon aura spread out. When the creatures in the vicinity sensed this aura, they trembled and prostrated themselves on the ground. This was due to the reverence they had for superior divine beasts. Some of the stronger beasts in the vicinity also prostrated themselves as if they were worshipping their emperor. The black-clothed young man glanced at Xiaoqing and said, "I didn't expect you to have cultivated the aura of a true dragon. You are showing signs of atavism. Brother Jiyu Fei, this is the Little Peng Emperor of the Sky Peng race." Yuan Hong introduced him to Jiyu Fei. Little Peng Emperor? Jiyu Fei could sense a powerful battle intent from the black-clothed young man. This Little Peng Emperor was arrogant and unruly. Did he want to fight him? The martial ancestor's successor, Jiyu Fei? The Little Peng Emperor sized up Jiyu Fei. Just the identity of the martial ancestor's successor was enough to shock him. Although he was only a successor and not a direct disciple, what difference did it make? The supreme martial ancestor had shaken the 9 heavens and 10 lands. He was the strongest saint in the world. Even though he had disappeared for countless years, no one could forget him. Yuan Hong was surprised that the Little Peng Emperor immediately opposed the Little Peng Emperor. In the end, Jiyu Fei and the Little Peng Emperor didn't make a move. Instead, they withdrew their auras and were invited into the cave abode by Yuan Hong. They couldn't fight here. This was Yuan Hong's territory, as well as the ancestral court of the Golden Spirit Ape race. Even the arrogant Little Peng Emperor wouldn't dare to act presumptuously here. "Brother Peng, why did you come to find me?" Yuan Hong was very direct. After sitting down, he went straight to the point. He didn't continue with the pleasantries, nor did he continue to introduce Xiaoqing and the others to the Little Peng Emperor. The Little Peng Emperor was very arrogant. He didn't think much of those weaker than him. Even though they were both divine beasts, he was an emperor. On the other hand, Xiaoqing and Balon were only divine beasts in the mysterious transformation realm. The Little Peng Emperor only glanced at Xiaoqing and Balon in front of Yuan Hong's cave abode before ignoring them. He also ignored Chu Liuqing. The Little Peng Emperor's disregard made Chu Liuqing feel very depressed. However, Chu Liuqing didn't dare show the slightest bit of displeasure. The other party was an expert from the Sky Rock race. The Sky Rock race was a powerful force in the heavenly realm that even the 5 great emperors Yan and the 4 great celestial emperors had to be wary of. This didn't mean that the Sky Rock race had the advantage in numbers. On the contrary, although the Sky Rock race had few clansmen, every single one of them was a powerhouse. Some people said that the current patriarch of the Sky Rock race had already successfully taken that step. Let alone Chu Liuqing, even the power behind Chu Liuqing definitely wasn't a match for the Sky Rock race. The little Peng Emperor's arrogance wasn't without reason. What? You still don't know that the palace of the moon deities has appeared? The little Peng Emperor asked in surprise. The palace of the moon deities has appeared? Yuan Hong was shocked. Then, he looked at Ji Yufei. When he saw Ji Yufei nod, he was even more shocked. The palace of the extreme path female sage had appeared. Nobody could sit still. Yuan Hong couldn't sit still either. I came to look for you because I want to go and take a look with you, the little Peng Emperor said. He wanted to invite Yuan Hong so that he wouldn't appear to be alone. Although the Sky Rock race was powerful, there were still many forces in the heavenly realm that could contend with the Sky Rock race. However, things would be different if Yuan Hong was involved. Without saying much, Yuan Hong and the little Peng Emperor set off. Under Yuan Hong's invitation, Ji Yufei and the others also went along. Ji Yufei and the others also used this opportunity to go back and take a look. Chapter 1031. All the powers in the heavenly realm focused their attention on the Eastern Earth. A storm was brewing in the Eastern Earth, and it was unknown how many powerful characters had appeared. Even the legendary super antiques that had fallen long ago had appeared. Some people saw the madman of a generation, Liu Rufeng, appear in the vicinity of the moon deity's palace. Some people also saw the battle emperor, Ao Wuchang, loitering outside the tent of the primordial emperor Xian. Some people even saw Yi Tian, who had disappeared for 1,000 years and was thought to have fallen, kill a great devil from the 100,000 devil mountains in the depths of the mountains. These were the experts of the heavenly realm who had become famous 10,000 years ago. They had disappeared for a long time, but now they had appeared in front of the world again. These three powerful characters had already been emperors of the celestial being realm 10,000 years ago. No one knew what level their cultivation had reached after 10,000 years. With the appearance of these powerful characters, the atmosphere of the Eastern Earth became very oppressive. A storm was brewing. Although all the great sects were still watching, they were already prepared. Although some people said that the primordial Emperor Xian had taken a step that no one had taken in millions of years, not everyone was afraid of him. Some people even wanted to fight him. When Ji Yufei had activated the mountain and river cauldron with all his strength, the buried moonland had been erased from the earth by a strand of the divine might of the mountain and river cauldron. The area where the buried moonland was located had already been enveloped by a super formation set up by the primordial Emperor Xian. It had sealed off the sky and the earth, so no one could easily break in. In the past few days, many people had tried to break in, but they had all died at the hands of the Violet Emperor. Although the Violet Emperor wasn't as powerful as his father, he gave off a more dangerous feeling. He would often smile and kill his enemies with a wave of his hand. He was regarded as the future master of the Eastern Earth. He had a talent that others couldn't hope to match. He had only cultivated for 1,000 years, but he already had the power to look down on the Eastern Earth. When Ji Yufei, Yuan Hong, and the little Peng Emperor were thousands of miles away from the place where the palace of the moon deities appeared, they were intercepted by a group of patrolling immortal soldiers. This group of immortal soldiers was clad in silver immortal armor and emanated a vast amount of immortal qi. Every one of them was an immortal god, and there were 12 of them in total. The one in the lead was an immortal general in the mysterious transformation realm. This place has already been designated as a forbidden area by His Majesty Yuan Jiyu. Outsiders are not allowed to enter. All of you should quickly retreat. The immortal general shouted at Ji Yufei and the others. The little Peng Emperor sneered and pointed with his finger. A ball of golden light shot out from his fingertip. Fart! With a bang, the immortal general in front of him exploded. His immortal king blood splattered everywhere, and he was killed in both body and soul. Seeing this scene, Ji Yufei's expression changed. This fellow was truly fearless. He even dared to kill the people of the primordial Emperor Xian. Brother Peng, Yuan Hong, was also startled by the little Peng Emperor. He Tian and the others also had ugly expressions. The little Peng Emperor had killed the people of the primordial Emperor Xian right off the bat. There was nothing more to say, so they immediately started fighting. The little Peng Emperor directly challenged the number one faction in the eastern lands. Just thinking about it made everyone shudder. Seeing that the leading immortal general had been killed, the group of immortal soldiers immediately dispersed with a bang. At the same time, he unleashed the immortal artifact in his hand, which he used to attack the crowd. Fart! Immortal power surged, and the entire area was illuminated by the immortal light emitted by the 11 immortal artifacts. Even the sun in the sky paled in comparison. The little Peng Emperor laughed and rushed forward. 18 golden rings shot out from his body, enveloping him within. All the immortal weapons that were rushing towards him were repelled by the 18 golden rings. Some of the immortal artifacts even shattered on the spot, and the fragments scattered in all directions. Bam! The little Peng Emperor rushed in front of an immortal soldier in an instant and punched, blasting the immortal soldier into pieces. Even the primordial spirit was shattered. The little Peng Emperor was too domineering and very arrogant. It was as if he was invincible. Immortal soldiers were killed with every move he made. From time to time, there would be immortal blood bursting in the air, and a bloody mist drifted in the void. This was immortal blood. Someone was killing immortals. If this scene happened in the mortal realm, the world would definitely be shaken. However, in the heaven realm, it was as common as having a meal. The heaven realm was very suitable for the cultivation of various races. Various factions nurtured many talented people. Under systematic guidance, most of these people could become immortals. However, the moment these people became immortals, it could be said that their cultivation could no longer increase. Without a higher cultivation technique, the experts in their sects would no longer impart and guide them. In the end, such people could only become immortal soldiers controlled by various factions. It was the same for the immortal soldiers of the primordial era Emperor Xian. Only a few people who broke through to the mysterious transformation realm would be appointed as immortal generals and command a certain number of immortal soldiers. It would take at least a few hundred years to nurture an immortal soldier. However, it only took a short moment for an immortal soldier to perish. Boom! The little Peng Emperor seemed to have transformed into a god of death. He soared into the sky and stomped down. The bodies of 3 immortal soldiers below were crushed by his stomp. Their primordial spirits dissipated, and they died instantly. In just a few short breaths, a team of immortal soldiers was almost completely annihilated. Only 2 terrified immortal soldiers were left. These 2 immortal soldiers had been completely intimidated by the little Peng Emperor's combat strength. They didn't even have any thoughts of resisting. They turned around and fled. You still want to flee in front of me? The little Peng Emperor's figure moved and disappeared. When he reappeared, he had already caught up to one of the fleeing immortal soldiers. The Sky Peng race was the descendant of the world's first great Peng golden-winged bird. Their speed was unparalleled in the heavenly realm. They were much faster than teleportation. The little Peng Emperor streaked across the void like a black bolt of lightning. He directly passed through the immortal soldier's body and turned it into a bloody mist. Swoosh! A primordial spirit light rushed out of the bloody mist in an attempt to escape. The little Peng Emperor opened his mouth and produced a heaven-devouring force that enveloped the primordial spirit light. One could vaguely see a small person struggling desperately within the primordial spirit light. The small person enveloped by the primordial spirit light was devoured by the little Peng Emperor. Devouring and primordial spirit? Everyone jumped in fright when they saw this. This was a great taboo. This was something only people of the demonic Tao would do. It wasn't a big deal to destroy an immortal in body and soul, but devouring and primordial spirit was a great taboo in the cultivation world. People who used this method to increase their cultivation and strength would become the public enemy of the various major factions. However, the little Peng Emperor had no qualms about devouring and primordial spirit in front of everyone. Swoosh! Divine light flashed on the little Peng Emperor's back as a pair of divine wings condensed. These were a pair of divine wings with resplendent golden light. The little Peng Emperor flapped his divine wings and transformed into a beam of divine light that rapidly moved through the void. He chased after the immortal that had already fled hundreds of kilometers away. In the blink of an eye, the little Peng Emperor caught up to the immortal. However, just as the little Peng Emperor caught up to the immortal, an extremely powerful aura suddenly surged over from the front. Then, an earth-shattering purple aura swept through the world, covering a distance of 1,500 kilometers. Chapter 1032. The purple chi was vast and mighty for 3,000 miles, and a god walked out from the boundless purple chi. The immortal soldier who was caught by the little Peng Emperor was overjoyed when he saw the deity. He rushed towards the deity without hesitation. However, the little Peng Emperor had no intention of letting him go. Swish! The golden divine wings swept forward. Rays of golden light shot out from the divine wings, turning into golden divine swords that pierced towards the immortal soldier. "Your Highness, save me." The immortal soldier was frightened out of his wits. In front of the little Peng Emperor, he was like a newborn baby. He had no strength to resist at all. "Little Peng Emperor, how dare you?" the deity shouted. The entire heaven and earth trembled under his voice. Even Jiu Fei couldn't help but frown. This person was very strong. The little Peng Emperor didn't say anything. Instead, he used his actions to reply to the deity. The golden divine swords pierced through the void and instantly caught up to the immortal soldier. Swish! Countless rays of golden light pierced through the immortal soldier's body. In an instant, the immortal soldier was sliced into countless pieces by the golden divine swords behind him. Then, his entire body collapsed and fell from the sky like a building block. Even his primordial spirit couldn't escape before it was destroyed by the golden divine swords. Roar! The Violet Emperor was furious. This little Peng Emperor was too much. He actually killed his immortal soldier in front of him. This made him incomparably furious. The Violet Emperor roared and took a step forward, sending a palm strike towards the little Peng Emperor. Bang! Boundless purple chi condensed into a huge purple hand. It shattered the void and covered the entire heaven and earth. It directly pressed down on the little Peng Emperor. The purple chi was vast and mighty. A terrifying power surged down from the purple hand. It was like the hand of the heavens, shattering the void and obliterating everything. "I've long wanted to fight you." The little Peng Emperor was extremely domineering. He directly soared into the sky. His divine wings were like two heavenly blades that tore the void apart. He directly tore apart the purple hand that was descending from the sky and rushed towards the Violet Emperor. The little Rock Emperor displayed the speed of a heavenly rock. His movement speed was so fast that it was unrivaled in the celestial realm. In an instant, he arrived before the Z Emperor. Next, he stretched out his right hand and his palm transformed into a golden claw, grabbing at the Z Emperor. Buzz! At this moment, the body of the Emperor of Z Huang trembled. A simple and unadorned bronze mirror appeared in front of him. Then, with a shua sound, a purple divine light rushed out from the bronze mirror. A terrifying aura filled the air. Bam! The golden claw shattered, and the divine light that shot out from the copper mirror dissipated into the void. The little rock was sent flying by an unstoppable force thousands of feet away. Damn it! Little Peng Emperor clenched his right fist tightly. Golden blood seeped out from between his fingers. He was injured. His opponent had used a supreme treasure right from the start, causing him to suffer a little. The virtual sky mirror? When He Tian saw the ancient bronze mirror floating above the Violet Emperor's head, he couldn't help but be moved. This was a saint artifact refined by a ruthless person in the desolate era. This isn't right. Immediately, He Tian sensed something strange. He discovered that this wasn't the real virtual sky mirror. Although it looked similar, its power didn't match. If this was the real virtual sky world, the attack just now would have obliterated the little Peng Emperor. His body and soul would have been destroyed. It wouldn't be as simple as just being injured. This was a divine artifact refined in imitation of the virtual sky world. However, even if this bronze mirror wasn't the legendary virtual sky world, it still possessed a great power that could injure the little Peng Emperor. Shua! The little Peng Emperor flapped his divine wings and immediately turned into a divine light. He rushed back from thousands of meters away and spat out a divine spear. This was a stone spear, but it emitted an aura that made everything in the world tremble. Mysterious ancient runes could be faintly seen on the surface of the stone spear. The stone spear pierced through the void, shattering heaven and earth as it stabbed towards the Z Emperor. Its terrifying aura shocked everyone. This was a peerless and vicious spear, a peerless weapon. Desolate sky spear? The Z Emperor was shocked. He recognized the origin of the stone spear, and his expression immediately changed. An unfathomable aura had already locked onto him. It was as if he was being stared at by a peerless heavenly beast, making him feel a sense of danger. Shua. The bronze mirror floating above the Z Emperor's head emitted endless divine light. Streams of purple aura rushed out of the mirror like huge dragons, blocking the spear. The purple aura around the Z Emperor was vast and mighty. His entire body seemed to have turned into a purple sun, illuminating the entire world in purple. His vast divine power shook the world. Crack! The stone spear pierced through and directly shattered the dragon-like purple aura rushing out of the mirror. The spearhead touched the bronze mirror. Cracks immediately appeared on the bronze mirror. The divine light dimmed, showing signs of being shattered by the stone spear. At the same time, the Z Emperor suffered a great impact. The thread of consciousness attached to the bronze mirror was almost shattered, and a trace of blood seeped out of the space between his eyebrows. Roar! The Z Emperor roared and was involuntarily sent flying. The bronze mirror floating above his head was also sent flying by the stone spear. Everyone was shaken by this scene. The little Peng was truly too powerful. He was actually able to suppress the Z Emperor. It had to be known that the Z Emperor was the son of the ancient Emperor Xian, the future ruler of the Eastern Earth. Although the Z Emperor had cultivated for 1,000 years, his strength was enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with the old antiques of the heavenly world. Ji Yufei had learned of the Z Emperor's origin from Yuan Hong. This Z Emperor was definitely one of the top existences in the Eastern Earth. Even Yuan Hong didn't want to provoke him. But the little Peng didn't have any misgivings. So what if it was the Z Emperor? Both the Z Emperor and the little Peng had powerful factions behind them. The little Peng also had the qualifications to challenge the son of the Eastern Earth's Emperor Xian. Mph. The son of the ancient Emperor Xian is nothing more than this. The little Peng extended his hand and the stone spear flew back into his hand. The desolate sky spear was the supreme treasure of the Tian Peng race, but it was now on the little Peng's body. The desolate sky spear was a supreme weapon even in the Great Desolate Era. According to legend, it was a weapon refined by the ancestor of the Tian Peng race, the great golden-winged Peng. This stone spear had once been dyed with the blood of a supreme existence. Its fiendish aura was enough to shake heaven and earth. Even Ji Yufei and the others couldn't help feeling its aura. You actually have this saint weapon on you. Chapter 1033. The Desolate Sky Spear? The Violet Emperor stared at the stone spear in the little Peng's hand. His eyes couldn't help but narrow. A ferocious killing intent surged from the stone spear, emitting an aura that made people's hearts palpitate. On the stone spear, there were ancient and mysterious runes faintly appearing. A trace of the Great Tao's aura circulated around it. This saint weapon was extraordinary. A saint weapon that could draw a trace of the Great Tao's power could only be refined by a half-step saint who had surpassed the almighty realm. Even if this stone spear wasn't an extreme saint weapon, it was still a half-step saint weapon. This kind of saint weapon was regarded as a supreme treasure by the major forces of the heavenly realm. They wouldn't use it easily. This little Peng actually brought out the desolate sky spear. Even Yuan Hong, who had some friendship with the little Peng, was a little surprised. Yuan Hong also had a half-step saint weapon in his hand. It was the golden staff that could smash saint weapons. It was a half-step saint weapon refined by an expert of the Golden Spirit Ape clan. The primordial Emperor Xian only has one son. The little Peng was very domineering. He looked at the Violet Emperor with disdain, giving off an insufferably arrogant feeling. The primordial era was conceited and arrogant. Ji Yufei didn't approve of the little Peng's attitude. It was undeniable that the little Peng was very strong, but in fact, it was almost on par with the Violet Emperor. The little Peng only relied on the power of the Desolate Sky Spear to gain the upper hand in the previous exchange. It's just the power of a murderous weapon. That's nothing, the Violet Emperor said disdainfully. The one suppressing him was the Desolate Sky Spear, not the little Peng. What's with all this nonsense? It's fine as long as I can defeat you. The little Peng pointed the stone spear in his hand at the Violet Emperor and said coldly. A pair of golden wings flapped behind him, stirring up gusts of wind. The little Peng's battle intent was unparalleled. When he was in the Ancestor Emperor realm, he wanted to fight against the human race's king martial physique. However, he didn't do so because of Yuan Hong. Now that he had encountered the Violet Emperor, a great battle was inevitable. The golden-winged little Peng Emperor had not been in the world for long. Although he wanted to establish his status and reputation through a battle, the Violet Emperor was a very good choice. As long as he defeated the Violet Emperor, all the cultivators in the Heaven Realm would know of the golden-winged little Peng Emperor. The golden-winged little Peng Emperor and the golden spirit ape Yuan Hong also became friends through fighting. Unfortunately, Yuan Hong's reputation in the Heaven Realm was not very good. Although the golden-winged little Peng Emperor fought with Yuan Hong, very few people knew about it. Now, it was different. At this moment, countless pairs of eyes were staring at the little Peng Emperor and the Violet Emperor. Swoosh, swish, swoosh. A few squads of silver-armored immortal soldiers led by a few immortal generals rushed over from afar and gathered behind the Violet Emperor. Silver-colored immortal armor flickered about, immortal energy surging, auspicious clouds curling about, as if a celestial emperor had sent out an army, giving off a powerful feeling of pressure. This was an army formed from immortal gods. Your Highness, the leading immortal generals saluted the Violet Sovereign. The battle between the little Peng Emperor and the Violet Sovereign had already alerted the immortal soldiers stationed at the burial moon grounds. All of you, back off, Emperor Z said without turning his head. These immortal soldiers and immortal generals wouldn't be of any help to him. The little Peng Emperor was a celestial emperor, and these immortal soldiers and immortal generals weren't his match. No matter how many of them went, they would only be throwing their lives away. Yes. The leading immortal generals and the immortal soldiers behind them bowed and retreated. Then they stood far away in the clouds, watching what was happening in front of them. One of the immortal generals turned and left. Many figures appeared nearby, drawn over by the battle between the little Peng Emperor and the Violet Sovereign. There was no lack of powerful figures among them. These people, Ji Yufei sensed many people's gazes sweeping over him. He couldn't help but be shocked. In front of these people, he couldn't help being cautious. He had long since activated the inner world's power to seal himself, isolating himself from all prying eyes. No one could see through him, unless an extreme Dao Saint came. No one could see through Ji Yufei's cultivation and strength, but Xiaoqing, Balon, and the others didn't have Ji Yufei's ability. Some celestial emperors could see through them. These people are actually together with the golden spirit ape. That divine ape is willing to team up with these people. These people are definitely not simple. Some people noticed Ji Yufei's group, especially since no one could see through Ji Yufei's cultivation. They couldn't help but look at him a few more times. Swish. At this time, the Violet Sovereign opened his mouth and spat out a divine sword surrounded by violet energy. Then he grasped it in his hand, and a terrifying aura spread out from the sword. Hey! Ji Yufei couldn't help but be startled when he saw this divine sword. This sword was very similar to his own violet gold divine sword. Sword Qi was vast and mighty, and the entire world became cold in an instant. Boss, this sword. Hei Tian couldn't help but whisper in Ji Yufei's ear. Ji Yufei nodded, but didn't say anything. Sovereign sword? Some of the Heavenly Realm's elders exclaimed. It's not the legendary sovereign sword, but someone quickly refuted it. Even so, some of the Heavenly Realm's elders who were watching the battle from a distance were still moved. What sovereign sword? Ji Yufei's sixth sense was much stronger than the average person's. He couldn't help but frown when he heard the elders' whispers. Could the sovereign sword they were talking about be the violet gold divine sword? The violet gold divine sword's origin was mysterious. Although Jiu Fei had obtained it for a long time, he still didn't know its origin. Boom! A loud sound suddenly erupted at this moment. The Violet Emperor and the Little Peng Emperor had once again clashed. The earth-shattering sound startled Jiu Fei awake from his contemplation. No one intervened because they didn't want to cause any trouble. The Violet Sovereign was the son of the primordial Emperor Xian, while the Little Peng was the prince of the Tian Peng clan. Both of them had powerful forces backing them. No one dared to ignore such forces. Bang! The desolate sky spear pierced through the void and turned into an immortal divine light. The spearhead was aimed at the Violet Sovereign's forehead. A terrifying divine power surged, and on the surface of the stone spear, there were countless divine runes. This was an ancient divine rune mastered by the Tian Peng clan. Outsiders couldn't understand it, but the experts of the Tian Peng clan had imprinted it on this ancient vicious weapon. Buzz! The violet sword vibrated and its sword aura soared to the sky. The violet divine sword seemed to have turned into a purple dragon that rushed up and collided with the desolate sky spear. Boom! There was another earth-shattering noise. At the place where the divine sword and the stone spear collided, a circle of visible ripples spread out. Then, the void collapsed and a radius of a few hundred meters turned into the most primordial chaos. The Amethyst Emperor and the Little Peng Emperor were sent flying more than 10 miles away by the opponent's power before they could stabilize themselves and stop their retreat. Half-Saint Weapon? Chapter 1034. This was a duel between semi-holy weapons. Terrifying energy ripples spread for hundreds of miles. Even the immortal soldiers and immortal generals standing on the clouds were blown away by the energy storm. Some of the heavenly world's elders couldn't help but retreat. Jiu Fei, Yuan Hong, and the others had retreated far away at the first possible moment. The power emitted by the semi-saint weapon was too shocking and terrifying, and it had shattered the space around it. This was a terrifying power that surpassed the almighty realm. It was equivalent to the attack of half a supreme saint. Semi-holy weapon? Interesting. The golden-winged Little Peng Emperor flapped its golden wings and immediately left behind an afterimage. Its real body had already turned into a beam of golden light that flitted across the sky. The desolate sky spear in its hand pierced towards the Violet Emperor. The ominous aura of the primordial ominous weapon soared into the sky, shaking the heavens and the earth. The vast energy fluctuations nearly caused the heavens and earth to collapse. Buzz! The amethyst sword vibrated. 9 rays of purple sword light rushed out from the Amethyst Emperor's hand like 9 dragons and pierced towards the Little Peng. Boom! A ray of purple sword light met the desolate sky spear and was directly shattered by the spear. The void shook violently. The sword light couldn't block the attack of the Little Peng. Boom! Another tremor was heard. Another ray of purple sword light collided with the desolate sky spear. However, the result was the same. The desolate sky spear couldn't be shaken. This primordial vicious weapon displayed unparalleled might. It shattered 8 purple sword chi in a row before it was stopped. The violent collision caused a few bloody marks to appear on the Little Peng Emperor's hands that were tightly gripping the spear. Golden divine blood flowed out, and the Little Peng Emperor almost couldn't hold on to the spear anymore. Swish! The sword light broke through the void. The remaining purple sword light was like a rainbow. It instantly streaked across the void and slashed towards the Little Peng. Although the sword light hadn't reached the Little Peng yet, the Little Peng's skin was already in pain from the cold sword chi. Swish! The wings on the Little Peng Emperor's back spread open, displaying the extreme speed of a heavenly peng. In an instant, he retreated thousands of meters away. However, the purple sword light was still chasing after him. It was difficult to escape. However, the Little Peng Emperor managed to catch his breath in that split second. He shook the desolate sky spear in his hand and met the purple swordlight head-on. Clang! The sound of metal clashing rang out as the purple sword light and the stone spear collided. The sound was so loud that everyone's ears were buzzing. The stone spear shattered the purple sword light. This was the first time the golden-winged Little Peng Emperor was forced to retreat. This made him very depressed. He didn't expect his opponent to have a semi-sage weapon as well. Moreover, the might of the Violet Emperor's semisage weapon was not inferior to his primordial ominous weapon, the desolate sky spear. When Jiu Fei and the others saw this scene, they were also shocked. Could it be that these fellows are able to fully exert the might of a semisaint weapon? He Tian said. The might displayed by these two semisaint weapons had definitely surpassed the almighty realm. No wonder the golden-winged little Peng Emperor was so arrogant. With such a semisaint weapon in hand, he could indeed look down on his peers. He might even be able to fight against the antiques of the heaven realm. This isn't the true power of a semisaint weapon. Yuan Hong stared at the two and said, "Yes." Jiu Fei nodded. The power of a semisaint weapon could only be fully exerted in the hands of a semisaint. A celestial being realm emperor would definitely not be able to exert the true power of a semisaint weapon. It had to be said that with a semisaint weapon in hand, these two could look down on the younger generation of the heaven realm. The Violet Emperor was regarded as the future ruler of the Eastern Land. He definitely had the strength to do so. As for the golden-winged little Peng Emperor, as the most outstanding prince of the heavenly Peng clan, he also had the strength to compete with the Violet Emperor. The golden-winged little Peng Emperor and the Violet Emperor moved quickly in the void. The little Peng Emperor displayed the extreme speed of a heavenly Peng, so he had the advantage in terms of speed. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The little Peng Emperor flashed around the Violet Emperor. It was as if there were more than 10 little Peng Emperors surrounding the Violet Emperor. No one could tell which one was the little Peng Emperor's real body. Of course, Jiu Fei and He Tian were the only exceptions. Jiu Fei had the martial Dao heavenly eye, and He Tian had the yin-yang divine eye, which could see through all facades. Only they could see the little Peng Emperor's real body. The little Peng Emperor's speed in the void was too fast. The extreme speed of a heavenly Peng was not inferior to his 8 steps extreme speed. Jiu Fei's eyes flickered. This was a powerful opponent. Not knowing why, Jiu Fei felt that there would definitely be a battle between him and the little Peng Emperor. This was a kind of intuition. The heaven realm was the same as the human realm. Every race had ushered in their most prosperous period. Experts from every race emerged in large numbers. For example, the Violet Emperor and the Little Peng Emperor were only two of the younger generation in the heaven realm. In the heaven realm, there were definitely more monstrous geniuses that were stronger than these two. The Violet Emperor was also impressive. He responded to the myriad of changes by remaining unchanging. One man and one sword seemed to have fused into one. As he brandished his sword intent, rays of purple divine light rushed out from his hand, piercing through the void and splitting the heaven and earth, destroying the afterimages left behind by the little Peng Emperor. There were a few times when the desolate heaven spear was about to pierce through the Violet Emperor. However, at the critical moment, the Violet Emperor blocked the little Peng Emperor's attack with his divine sword. Heavenly war-slaying art, heaven and earth-shattering. The little Peng Emperor shook the stone spear in his hand. Finally, he used the supreme killing art of the heavenly Peng race. The stone spear in his hand released a dazzling divine light. Dao runes interweaved on the surface of the stone spear. A terrifying aura that could destroy the heaven and earth spread out from the stone spear. Bang! The stone spear seemed to have turned into an eternal killing light. The powerful energy wave crushed the void in front of it. The terrifying chi sealed the entire heaven and earth. The Violet Emperor had nowhere to hide. Everyone was shocked. No one had thought that the little Peng Emperor would use such a killing art. This was the ultimate killing art of the heavenly Peng race. It would only be used in a life or death battle. Has the little Peng Emperor gone mad? Even Yuan Hong was shocked by the little Peng Emperor's attack. He had fought with the little Peng Emperor before, but it had never used such a killing technique in the end. Was he going to fight to the death with the Violet Emperor? Swish! The desolate heaven spear turned into a killing light that instantly pierced through the Violet Emperor. Everyone's eyes bulged out of their sockets when they saw this scene. Even those old geezers couldn't help but be moved. If the Violet Emperor died, the primordial Emperor Xian would definitely go crazy. The entire heaven realm would become even more unstable. It was as if they could already see a reign of terror. Chapter 1035. The little Peng used the supreme killing technique of the Tian Peng race. The desolate sky spear in his hand transformed into an eternal beam of light that pierced through the void, shattering heaven and earth. A terrifying power surged from the desolate sky spear, locking down this part of the world. This kind of power was truly frightening, causing heaven and earth to lose color. The Violet Emperor had nowhere to run. His monstrous divine power sealed off all his paths of retreat. Swish! The Violet Emperor's body was pierced through by the desolate sky spear. Afterward, his entire body turned to ash that dissipated into the void. It was as if the little Peng Emperor's attack had killed him in both body and soul. When everyone saw this, they couldn't help but be shocked to the extreme. The Violet Emperor had fallen? No way. The Violet Emperor had fallen. The primordial Emperor's yarn would definitely go crazy. The little Peng Emperor had caused trouble this time. Perhaps even the Tian Peng race wouldn't be able to protect him. A bloody storm was unavoidable. He's dead. The little Peng Emperor didn't feel the slightest bit of joy from killing a powerful enemy. His divine eyes scanned the surroundings. He had a strange feeling that something wasn't right. The Violet Emperor was the son of the primordial Emperor's yarn. He was the second strongest person in the Eastern Earth. How could he be killed so easily? The little Peng Emperor was on high alert. Ji Yufei also frowned when he saw this. Swish! Just as everyone thought that the Amethyst Emperor had fallen, the space behind the little Peng Emperor suddenly distorted. A figure rushed out of the void without any warning. The little Peng Emperor's hair stood on end. He instantly sensed something strange behind him. An extremely dangerous aura enveloped him. He didn't hesitate to use his heavenly Peng extremity and rush forward. Swish! A golden light so fast that it couldn't be seen by the naked eye tore through the void. In an instant, it had traveled hundreds of meters, but it was already too late. Bang! A huge violet hand ruthlessly slammed into the little Peng Emperor's back. The sound of bones breaking rang out. The little Peng Emperor's divine wings were directly broken, causing golden feathers to scatter in all directions. Each feather was shrouded in golden light. These were the divine feathers of the Tian Peng race. Roar! The little Peng Emperor was sent flying thousands of meters away. His body was almost destroyed. He coughed up large mouthfuls of golden divine blood. Every drop of blood was golden. The great golden-winged Peng was also a metal divine beast among the 5 carnate divine beasts. Like the golden spirit ape, it was born from the metal ancestral chi at the beginning of the world. Golden-winged little Peng Emperor roared in anger. Streams of metal element divine power rushed out of his body, and the flesh and blood on his divine wings surged. His wounds were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. At this level of cultivation, even if the body suffered even more severe injuries, it would be able to recover in an instant, unless the primordial spirit was attacked. At this realm, the little Peng Emperor. The void shook violently, and a purple figure directly walked out of the void. That person's entire body was shrouded in purple chi. Who else could it be other than the Violet Emperor who had just been killed by the little Peng Emperor's spear? Not only did Peng Emperor not die, but he had caught him off guard and injured the little Peng Emperor. He inherited one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao. Ji Yufei muttered to himself. He could see the secret art Peng Emperor had used. Others might not know about the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao, but Ji Yufei did. He had once refined the celestial ancestors' soul memories. No one knew these arts better than he did. Although the celestial ancestor didn't have the complete 9 secrets of the immortal Tao, he knew how powerful the other secrets were. Peng Emperor had broken through the heaven-battling Slayer Art's death domain. Only the void reversal of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao could do this. Void reversal melded one's body into the void of the world. Nothing could touch one's body, and one could come and go as one with the world. When this secret technique was cultivated to the great accomplishment realm, one could go anywhere. There were no forbidden lands or dead lands in the world. These dangerous lands were like broad roads in front of the anti-void secret technique. Those who could cultivate this secret art could even break through the killing arrays of an extreme Tao saint. Void reversal? This guy. Hearing this, He Tian's expression changed. If Peng Emperor had really cultivated this secret art, then he would be in an invincible position. The little Peng Emperor was about to meet a tragic end. Damn it! Despicable bastard! The little Peng Emperor was enraged. He strode through the void, approaching Peng Emperor step by step. The desolate sky spear in his hand emitted a monstrous might. Rumble! The little Peng Emperor was like an ancient divine mountain moving through the void. His aura rose to the extreme, causing the void to tremble. He displayed strength that was much more powerful than ordinary celestial realm emperors. The spectators were all incomparably shocked. The Tian Peng race had been silent for a long time, but they didn't expect such a powerful little Peng Emperor to appear. Was the heavenly realm going to welcome another golden age? Some old fogies of the heavenly realm were muttering to themselves. This was the cycle of the great Tao of heaven and earth. With the arrival of the golden age, all heroes would rise. Battles were inevitable. This was an incomparably difficult path to prove one's Tao. The path to becoming a saint would inevitably be paved with the corpses of heroes. The heavenly war-slaying art was the supreme killing art of the celestial Peng race. The desolate sky spear emitted a vast amount of energy, forming a domain filled with baleful aura. A region seemed to have appeared around the little Peng Emperor. Countless white bones could be faintly seen, and a sea of blood was surging. Faint and illusory figures were struggling. Bang! The little Peng Emperor shook the stone spear in his hand. The phenomenon around him immediately gathered around the stone spear. Countless runes bloomed on the spear, and a trace of the great Tao's power attracted the power of heaven and earth. Sensing the terrifying fluctuations coming from the desolate sky spear, even the old fogies of the heavenly realm couldn't help but be moved. What a terrifying spear! Ji Yufei felt an extreme danger from the desolate sky spear in the little Peng Emperor's hand. His heart couldn't help palpitating. The heavenly war-slaying art and the desolate sky spear really are one. Is this a killing art specially created for this murderous weapon? The old fogie's eyes lit up. They knew the origin of the desolate sky spear. It was the celestial Peng race's supreme treasure. Could it be that the heavenly war-slaying art was imprinted on it? Some people already had their eyes on the desolate sky spear. Die. At this time, the little Peng Emperor's aura reached its peak. The stone spear flew out of his hand and instantly pierced through the Violet King. The desolate sky spear was too fast. The Violet King didn't even have time to react. Swish. Without any suspense, the desolate sky spear pierced through the Violet King. NBSP. Chapter 1036. The Sky Rock Race's heavenly slaying art was no small matter. In the hands of the little Peng Emperor, it was enough to challenge the ancient existences of the heavenly realm. Please remember me. Without any suspense, the killing light formed by the stone spear pierced through the purple emperor once again. But this time, no one was shocked. The little Peng Emperor couldn't kill the Violet Emperor with his spear the first time. But would he succeed the second time? Boom! The void shook as the desolate sky spear blossomed with divine light. In an instant, it melted the void, leaving nothing behind. The little Peng Emperor's attack had turned the Violet Emperor's location into the most primal chaos. You still won't die this time? The little Peng Emperor sneered. This attack had even shattered the Violet Emperor's location. How could the Violet Emperor escape? The little Peng Emperor was very confident. So what if he was the Violet Emperor? So what if he was the son of the primordial Emperor Xian? So what if he was killed? The little Peng Emperor didn't have any misgivings. But the spectators were sweating. If the Violet Emperor died, it would cause a huge storm in the heavenly realm. Now that the demons were becoming more active and the heavenly realm was in turmoil, the human race should unite and not fight each other. That would weaken the righteous path and give the demons an opportunity. Those with foresight were already worried about the road ahead. Swish! The void behind the little Peng Emperor twisted once more. How is this possible? The little Peng Emperor turned around abruptly. The desolate sky spear that he had already retracted pierced forward. The mighty destructive power that emanated from the stone spear tore apart the heavens and earth, shattering the distorted void in front of it. Bam! Suddenly, A huge purple hand came from the side of the little Peng Emperor and struck his right shoulder. Catcher. The sound of bones cracking came from the little Peng's body. Divine power was vast and mighty. The purple hand smashed the bones of the little Peng into pieces. Ah! The little Peng Emperor was both shocked and furious. He couldn't help but fly to the side. Although his shoulder bones were shattered, he still tightly held onto the desolate sky spear. Everyone's eyeballs were protruding out of their sockets. They were dumbfounded. The owner of the purple hand was the Zi Huang. He had once again escaped the heaven-battling slaughter technique and sent the little Peng Emperor flying again. This caused the little Peng Emperor to feel ashamed and inconsolable. What kind of secret technique is this? I didn't expect the purple emperor to have cultivated such a secret technique. Such a secret art is too weird and dreadful. The spectators from afar were all staring at the two of them. However, no one could tell how the Zi Huang had managed to dodge the warring heaven slaying technique. Even those old antiques of the heaven realm who had lived for a very long time couldn't catch the trajectory of the purple emperor's movements. They had no idea how he did it. Could it be the legendary secret skill? An old man, whose hair and teeth had almost all fallen off, muttered to himself. Deep in his murky old eyes, a bright light flashed. Behind the old man stood 3 cultivators. One was a black-robed middle-aged man, while the other 2 were black-robed youths. These 3 cultivators all emitted an extremely obscure aura. Old ancestor, could the Zi Huang have obtained that person's inheritance? The middle-aged man asked respectfully. The black-robed middle-aged man was a Shen king. The other 2 black-robed youths were also at the peak of the 9th level of the mysterious transformation realm. Yuan Jiyu really hid it well. The old man didn't say much. He just said this out of nowhere, leaving the black-robed middle-aged man and the 2 youths confused. Void reversal. This is definitely one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao, the void reversal secret technique. Jiyu Fei's eyes lit up. He no longer had any doubts that the Zi Huang had actually obtained one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao created by the supreme Tao ancestor. Using one's own body to counter attacks, leaving no traces behind. Now that Zi Huang had mastered this secret technique, he was indeed invincible. Even Jiyu Fei felt a great deal of pressure. Jiyu Fei thought that even if he were to fight against the Violet Sovereign, he might not have the confidence to win. He had already grasped 3 of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao: Ascend, Divine Seize, and One Breath into 3 Pure. Each secret possessed heaven-defying power that could instantly reverse the tide of a battle. The 9 secrets of the immortal Tao had been lost. Even the Primeval Tao Gate, which claimed to be the inheritance of the supreme Tao ancestor, hadn't been able to cultivate it, let alone other cultivators. Jiyu Fei wanted to gather all 9 secrets of the immortal Tao. But he knew that this was something that could only be encountered by chance. It was too difficult. Now that he had seen the other secret, he couldn't help but feel a bit tempted. Despicable scoundrel, fight me fair and square if you have the gut. The little Peng flew into a rage out of humiliation after being sent flying twice in a row. He rushed over from a distance. His broken right shoulder was now as good as new. It's fine as long as I can defeat you. What's with all this nonsense? The Zi Huang sneered. In truth, he had already been merciful. Otherwise, the little Peng would have died twice already. The Zi Huang didn't kill either time, only heavily injuring the little Peng's body. If the Zi Huang really wanted to kill him, the little Peng wouldn't have been able to withstand it. How could the little Peng not know that his opponent was being merciful? However, it was also because of this that the arrogant him couldn't accept this reality. Ah! The little Peng almost coughed up blood. His opponent was too despicable, but he had to admit that his opponent's secret art was terrifying. Even the desolate sky spear wasn't able to seal his opponent, allowing him to escape with a secret art. Swoosh! Without saying anything else, the little Peng Emperor rushed forward once more. This time, he was truly enraged. He no longer held back. Seal the heavens and trap the earth, omnidirectional annihilation. With a furious roar, his body blossomed with divine light. He seemed to have fused with the desolate sky spear in an instant, transforming into an unprecedentedly powerful killing light. Boom! Terrifying divine power swept through the heavens and earth, shattering the void. The sky itself seemed on the verge of collapsing, the earth quaked, and the earth sank. The little Peng's all-out attack shook heaven and earth. The killing light became the only thing between heaven and earth. Even the celestial realm's elders paled. Terrifying god power sealed off a part of the world. Even the people watching from afar felt uncomfortable, as if an ancient divine mountain had suddenly pressed down on them. This. Chapter 1037. The little Peng Emperor was going all out. He executed the sure-kill technique of the warring heavens slaying art. His entire person seemed to have transformed into a beam of destructive divine light, drawing upon boundless energy and piercing toward the Violet Emperor. Tens of thousands of beams of light shot out from all directions, trapping the Amethyst Emperor within. The void was shattered, the heaven and earth were pierced, and the Amethyst Emperor had nowhere to run. This killing art was too terrifying. Even when facing an army of thousands, the Amethyst Emperor could still destroy them all by himself. The heavenly slaying art truly lived up to its name. Everyone was shocked. Even the Amethyst Emperor's expression changed. 3,000 worlds, let me roam as I please. Negate the void. The Amethyst Emperor roared in a low voice. The violet chi around his body disappeared into his body. Then, his entire being became blurry, and he disappeared in the void. Clang. The stone spear let out a metallic sound. The void where the Amethyst Emperor was instantly shattered into thousands of pieces. Under the power of the divine strength of annihilation, the void became the most primitive form of chaos. How is this possible? Everyone's eyes widened and their jaws dropped. Under such an attack, the Amethyst Emperor could actually escape? It was truly unbelievable. The Violet Emperor's Deva realm aura had completely disappeared, and no one could sense the Violet Emperor's existence. Even Erebus, who had cultivated the yin-yang divine eyes and could interweave the power of the great Tao, could only see an extremely faint afterimage. In between Ji Yu Fei's eyebrows, a purple mark appeared, as if a divine eye was about to open. This was the martial path heavenly eye that Ji Yu Fei had cultivated. Although it hadn't truly opened, he could still sense the Amethyst Emperor's aura. Obviously, although the Amethyst Emperor had obtained the negate the void technique, he hadn't cultivated it to the grand completion level. Therefore, he could still sense a trace of him. The Amethyst Emperor hadn't truly negated the void. He had completely merged with the world around him. Otherwise, nobody would be able to sense his presence. This was walking in the void, and the body of the Violet Emperor seemed to be one with the surrounding void. Ji Yu Fei saw the annihilation-killing lights pierce through the phantom of the Violet Emperor, but he didn't see anything wrong with the Violet Emperor, as if he hadn't been injured at all. It was as if he had become a transparent mass of air, and all attacks were ineffective against him. The anti-void secret technique is indeed terrifying. Ji Yu Fei's heart trembled. Every one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao possessed heaven-defying might. The unfathomable might of the secret art of disillusionment made even Ji Yu Fei feel a great deal of pressure. If it wasn't for the fact that he had cultivated the martial path heavenly eye, even Ji Yu Fei wouldn't have been able to capture any traces of the Violet Emperor. Even if the Violet Emperor was right in front of him, he probably wouldn't be able to detect it. The 9 secrets of the immortal Tao are truly wondrous. He Tian couldn't help but sigh when he saw this. What? The Violet Emperor is using the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao? Hearing Erebus' words, Chu Liuqing was the first to cry out in alarm. Astonishment filled his face. Even the golden spirit ape Yuan Hong revealed an astonished expression. Yuan Hong's father was the sacred ape of the golden spiritual ape clan. He had been an invincible powerhouse during the Great Desolate Era who could stand shoulder to shoulder with an extreme sage. When the old sacred ape had disappeared, Yuan Hong had still been a child. Even so, Yuan Hong had learned many secrets of the world. The old sacred ape had once discussed with others about the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao created by the supreme Tao ancestor. The 9 secrets of the immortal Tao were created by heaven and earth. As long as one could cultivate one of the secrets, one would be able to dominate the world. Yuan Hong's expression turned solemn when he recalled his father's words. He had cultivated the fiery golden eyes, so he could also capture a trace of abnormality in the void. Although the Violet Emperor had cultivated the anti-void secret technique, it didn't seem to be at the right level yet. However, even though the Violet Emperor's anti-void secret technique hadn't reached grand completion yet, it was already enough. He traversed through the thousands of divine lights of annihilation without a sound or a trace. Not a single ray of divine light could hurt him, and he escaped from the thousands of divine lights. How can this be? The little Peng's heart shook. The Violet Emperor's technique was too strange. He couldn't even track the Violet Emperor's movements. The Violet Emperor was already in an invincible position. The little Peng had no choice but to face this fact. He had fused with the Desolate Sky Spear and used his Shorekill technique, but he still couldn't hurt the Violet Emperor at all. This made the little Peng's heart turn cold. Swoosh. He took advantage of the fact that he was still fused with the Desolate Sky Spear to fly into the sky. He hadn't truly lost yet, so he wanted to retreat just like that. However, how could there be such a good thing in this world? The little Peng had killed the immortal soldiers and generals under the Primordial Emperor's yarn. How could the Violet Emperor let the little Peng leave so easily? With a thought, he caught up to the little Peng. His speed was unimaginably fast. Even Jiu Fei's heart skipped a beat. Such speed was definitely not inferior to the extreme speed 8 steps. Bang! A huge violet gold palm directly slammed out from the void, slamming against the terrifying divine light created by the little Peng and the Desolate Sky Spear. The divine light trembled and the little Peng's figure appeared. He was forced out of the state where he was fused with the Desolate Sky Spear. Swoosh! The little Peng didn't dare to stop and didn't even dare to retaliate. He continued to rush forward. Monstrous baleful energy filled the sky. The divine light of annihilation was fleeing at an astonishing speed. Bang! The violet gold palm appeared again, releasing a terrifying wave of immortal energy and ruthlessly slammed against the killing light. The Violet Emperor didn't want to let the little Peng go, so he chased after it. Roar! The little Peng roared in anger. Golden blood sprinkled down from the sky. The insufferably arrogant little Peng was completely suppressed by the Violet Emperor and didn't even have the strength to retaliate. One chasing and one fleeing, the little Peng and the Violet Emperor quickly disappeared from everyone's sight. Many people chased after them. However, Jiu Fei and the others didn't chase after them. The little Peng is too arrogant and conceited. It's rare to find someone who can teach him a lesson. Chu Liuqing looked at the direction where the little Peng disappeared and said. Violet Emperor, Jiu Fei also looked at the direction where the little Peng and the Violet Emperor disappeared. The son of the Primordial Emperor's yarn was indeed extraordinary. He actually obtained one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao. In truth, the little Peng was quite unlucky. His strength was almost on par with the Violet Emperor. Even if the Violet Emperor could defeat him in the end, he would have to pay a great price. However, the Violet Emperor had mastered the anti-void secret art. Thus, the little Peng was no match for the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao. Boom! At this moment, an earth-shattering explosion suddenly rang out in front of them. The entire world shook violently as an extremely powerful aura surged forth from the front. What's going on? Jiu Fei and the others couldn't help but be startled. This powerful aura was at least the work of a supreme existence. Someone finally couldn't help but want to take action. The appearance of the moon deity's palace caused everyone in the heavenly world to be envious. Even the old antiques in the heavenly world would go crazy for it. That was the palace of the extreme Tao Saintess. Whoever could find the moon deity's palace would obtain the inheritance of the extreme Tao Saintess. This was one of the oldest legends in the heavenly world. What did the inheritance of the extreme Tao Saintess mean? It was no wonder that the Primordial Emperor's yarn had risked becoming enemies with the rest of the world to lay down a peerless divine formation in order to monopolize the moon deity's palace. However, no one wanted to see the Primordial Emperor's yarn obtain the inheritance of the moon deities. The true powerhouses of the heavenly world had begun to take action. Let's go. Yuan Hong and Jiu Fei flew side by side in the direction of the explosion. He Tian, Xiaoqing, Balon, and Chu Liuqing hastily followed. Ao Watchang has come to pay a visit. Someone was speaking. Even though his voice wasn't all that loud, it spread throughout the entire world. This was a type of Dao sound. Jiyu Fei and the others didn't dare approach. They stopped 100 miles away. They saw a figure standing in the air. It was a middle-aged man in plain clothes. His body was surrounded by divine light. It was 108 divine rings. Jiyu Fei felt an unimaginably powerful wave of divine power from that person. It was very oppressive, almost suffocating. This person, Jiyu Fei couldn't help but be shocked. This person was really too powerful. He was probably even more powerful than ordinary almighties. Just the aura coming from his body was enough to intimidate ordinary sovereigns. Ao Watchang, at this moment, a voice came from a large formation. Battler Emperor Ao Watchang? Didn't he die? When Chu Liuqing heard this voice, he was so shocked that he almost jumped up from the ground. Battler Emperor? He Tian revealed a disdainful expression. This guy actually dared to call himself Battler Emperor? Was he already invincible in the same realm? Swish. A figure flickered in front of the formation. A majestic middle-aged man walked out. This person was the Eastern Earth Emperor's Yuan Jiyu. He didn't wear luxurious clothes or put on any airs. His hair was tied behind him with a ribbon. There was no trace of immortal force or earth-shattering aura coming from his body. He looked just like an ordinary cultivator. Return to the natural state? You actually took that step? Ao Watchang was shocked when he saw the Emperor's Yuan. He couldn't see through the other party's cultivation. The other party's cultivation was definitely above his own. Battler Emperor Ao Watchang, you came at the right time. I was looking for an opponent that could rival me, Yuan Jiyu Emperor's Yuan said indifferently. If you want to fight, then let's fight. Ao Watchang's body emitted a monstrous battle intent. He didn't say anything else. The two of them would inevitably fight. Boom. Crimson battle intent erupted from Ao Watchang's body, transforming into a vast expanse of crimson lightning that hurtled toward immortal Emperor Yuan Jiyu. The area where Battler Emperor Ao Watchang was standing instantly turned into a sea of blood-colored lightning. A radius of several dozen miles was instantly covered by the blood-colored lightning. N. Chapter 1038. The Battle Emperor Ao Watchang was extremely domineering. Even when facing Yuan Jiyu Immortal Emperor, he still made the first move. Blood-colored lightning tore through the void and shattered the heaven and earth, enveloping a radius of 10 miles. It was a sea of blood-colored lightning that drowned everything. The destructive power was wreaking havoc. No one could see the Yuan Jiyu Emperor's Yuan and the War Emperor Ao Watchang within it. It's a fight, Ao Watchang versus Yuan Jiyu, who will win? The War Emperor Ao Watchang was famous 10,000 years ago. He is the War Emperor among War Emperors. Yuan Jiyu has met his match. Terrifying energy fluctuations spread out and could be sensed within a 10,000-mile radius. The War Emperor Ao Watchang's attack immediately alerted everyone gathered in the area. Ancient figures appeared in the vicinity and some heavenly worlds-old antiques were whispering to each other. That old guy is also here. Suddenly, He Tian's voice rang out in Jiyu Fei's mind. Jiyu Fei couldn't help but be startled when he heard this. Then, he looked around and saw an extremely old man with 3 juniors appearing in the sky. The old man's turbid eyes glanced at Jiyu Fei unintentionally. Hiss. Jiyu Fei sucked in a breath of cold air as goosebumps rose all over his body. The old man's gaze seemed to have seen through him completely. This person is very scary, Jiyu Fei said. The old man glanced at Jiyu Fei and no longer paid attention to Jiyu Fei. He continued to focus on the battle in front of him. Boom. The heavens and earth shook. An extremely powerful aura suddenly erupted from within the blood-colored lightning. The entire void trembled and the sky seemed like it was about to collapse. A figure emitting dazzling divine light stepped out from within the blood-colored lightning. Vast and mighty immortal energy surrounded his body. Thousands of strands of propitious energy blocked the blood-colored lightning from approaching him. Like a celestial emperor, the endless blood-colored lightning collapsed with a wave of his hand. The ocean of blood-colored lightning that enveloped a 10-mile radius instantly dissipated. Clang! The moment the blood-colored lightning collapsed, a battle sword let out a deafening cry. The resplendent swordlight tore the sky apart as it fell from the sky and pierced the top of the head of the Yuan ancient Emperor Xian. The sword chi surged between the heavens and the earth. Everyone who felt the impact of this sword chi felt cold all over, as if a divine sword was pressed against their throats. Bam! Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian casually threw a punch upwards. There was no dazzling divine light or any fluctuation of immortal force on his fist. However, the seemingly ordinary punch had knocked the battle sword away, and Ao Watchang's figure was forced out of the void. All right. Ao Watchang grabbed the sword with one hand and pointed it at Emperor Xian. His battle intent surged. Meeting an opponent like Emperor Xian made his blood boil. Worthy of his reputation, Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian couldn't help but become serious. His opponent had become famous before him. As the saying goes, a person's reputation is like a tree's shadow. The Battle Emperor definitely had the cultivation and strength to look down on emperors of the same level. Ao Watchang and Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian were just testing him. Again, Ao Watchang shook the sword in his hand. Buzz! With a clang, the sword radiated an endless blood-red light, illuminating the entire world in the color of blood. It was a blood-colored divine sword. The sword chi surged like a sea of blood had appeared between the heavens and earth. The fierce murderous aura caused everything in the world to tremble. Swish! 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 The endless blood-colored light condensed into rays of annihilation, divine light that pierced through the void like heavenly swords descending from the heavens and earth. They attacked Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian from all directions. The terrifying sword chi spread for hundreds of miles, forcing some of the spectators to retreat further away. Swish! A ray of blood-colored light swept through a mountain and actually severed it from the waist down. The mountain toppled, the earth quaked, and dust rose high into the sky. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked at this scene. Battle Emperor Ao Watchang was indeed powerful. His blood-slaughter divine light was unstoppable and could destroy everything. All the old antiques in the heavenly world were watching. Although some said that Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian had already taken that step, not many believed it. Ao Watchang jumping out at this time was just the right time to force Yuan Jiyu to reveal his true strength. However, in the face of Ao Watchang's fierce attack, Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian remained calm. His body was shrouded in auspicious immortal light as rays of divine light interweaved outside his body. The divine rays of bloody slaughter were swift to the extreme, and they pierced through immortal Emperor Yuan Jiyu in an instant. However, something that left everyone dumbfounded happened. The rays of bloody slaughter that were piercing towards immortal Emperor Yuan Jiyu actually turned around and shot towards Ao Watchang. Everyone was dumbfounded at this scene. Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian didn't seem to have done anything. He didn't even move a finger, but all the attacks were reversed in an instant. Giving him a taste of his own medicine, what kind of divine art was this? No one wasn't moved. Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian's methods were too shocking. He had grasped some kind of secret art that could reverse attacks. He was probably in an invincible position. Jiyu Fei was equally shocked. This wasn't a void-shifting divine art, but a peerless secret art. There was no trace of Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian's attack. However, the Battle Emperor's attack had been reversed. One of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao, the chaotic secret art? Jiyu Fei was truly stunned this time. It seemed like the other party had grasped more than one secret art. The chaotic secret art was one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao. Legend had it that when cultivated to the grand completion level, even time and space could be reversed. It was the most unfathomable secret art among the 9. Another one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao? Yuan Hong was shocked when he heard this. Yuan Jiyu, the celestial emperor of the Eastern Land, was truly terrifying. He had actually mastered 2 secret arts. It should be known that the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao were already incomplete in the Desolate Era. It had to be said that Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian had great luck to obtain 2 peerless secret arts. These were supreme arts created by an extreme Tao saint. You actually, Battle Emperor Ao Watchang was also shocked to the extreme. He waved his sword and blocked the bloody divine light that was reversing back at him. 9 secrets of the immortal Tao, the old man who had lost all his teeth and hair muttered to himself. Divine light shot out from the depths of his turbid eyes. It was as if 2 universes were evolving in his eyes. You actually obtained the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao. Ao Watchang's voice changed. A saint's art was an invincible art. How could they fight if Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian had grasped the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao? Everyone was shocked to hear this. Even some powerful figures who didn't take Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian seriously were now very afraid of him. N. Chapter 1039. The 9 secrets of the immortal Tao and the saint's art shocked even the old antiques of the celestial realm. They were even more shocked than when they heard that Primordial Emperor Xian had taken that step. "You're no match for me." Primordial Emperor Xian was very confident. He strode through the void like a celestial emperor, and with every step he took, auspicious clouds and auspicious qi appeared beneath his feet. The aura of the immortal Tao pervaded the air. As he walked over, Ao Watchang's expression changed, and he continuously retreated. There was no one who wouldn't be moved by the saint's art. It was a Tao technique created by deriving the great Tao of the world. It could draw upon the power of the great Tao and possessed unfathomable power. Preposterous. At this moment, Ao Watchang was truly in a dilemma. With his current cultivation, even if immortal Emperor Yuan Jiyu really took that step, he would still be able to put up a fight. But now, Ao Watchang's confidence had suffered a blow. His opponent had actually obtained the legendary 9 secrets of the immortal Tao, which could reverse all of his attacks. Primordial Emperor Xian had grasped this secret technique and was now in an invincible position. Damn it! Blood massacre in all directions. Ao Watchang roared and then shook the blood-fiend sword in his hand. An extremely terrifying sword qi suddenly erupted, surging in the heavens and earth. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines. Whoosh! 8 beams of blood-fiend sword light shot into the sky, drawing upon the power of the world from all directions. They instantly entered the sky and disappeared. The next moment, an extremely terrifying wave of energy came crashing down from the sky. It was as if the world itself was sinking. Although Jiyu Fei and the others were very far away, they still felt a great pressure. The power that came crashing down from the sky was simply too powerful. Boom! The 8 rays of demonic blood sword light reappeared. At this time, the 8 rays of sword light had become over 10 miles long. They were like blood-colored rainbows as they descended from the sky. They emitted a torrential sword qi as they slashed towards immortal Emperor Yuan Jiyu below. The 8 beams of sword light sealed the surroundings, drawing upon the power of the world to destroy everything. The void was collapsing and the earth was sinking. It was unstoppable. Is this the true power of the Battle Emperor? Jiyu Fei's pupils couldn't help but constrict when he witnessed this scene. Ao Watchang is stronger than all the emperors I've met, and is definitely an emperor amongst emperors. The 8 blood-fiend sword lights tore through the heavens and earth, emitting a destructive power that made everyone's hearts palpitate. It was as if they could destroy everything, and even the void was destroyed by the sword lights. However, the unbelievable scene from before happened again. The primordial Emperor Xian was still closing in on Ao Watchang, and no one saw him use any spells. However, just like before, the 8 sword lights that seemed capable of destroying heaven and earth were mysteriously reversed when they reached Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian's side. Buzz! The 8 demonic blood sword lights vibrated, and the sound pierced through the void and went straight up to the 9 heavens. Every sword light was emitting a terrifying destructive bloody light, and the target of every sword light changed in an instant. Ao Watchang immediately turned pale with fright, and the expressions of everyone who witnessed this changed too. No one knew better than Ao Watchang how powerful this killer move of his was. This move had drawn upon the qi of the 9 heavens, and it could destroy everything and kill everything in its path. However, at this moment, the killer move that he was so proud of had been completely reversed. The 8 blood-fiend sword lights were no longer under his control, and they were piercing toward him. Roar! Ao Watchang roared furiously. His long hair stood on end, and his surroundings were surrounded by blood-colored divine lights. He seemed to have turned into an ancient god of slaughter, and he swung the sword in his hand to block the attack. At the same time, he rapidly retreated. Clang! The first blood-colored sword light was shattered, and Ao Watchang was sent flying thousands of meters away. The second blood fiend sword light pierced through, and Ao Watchang was sent flying thousands of meters away again. Ao Watchang wasn't bad either. He'd successively shattered 7 blood fiend sword lights that were over a dozen kilometers long, but his hands that held the sword were bleeding from the impact, and blood was seeping out of his mouth. The 8th blood fiend sword light pierced through, and Ao Watchang felt powerless in his heart. He was actually about to be defeated by his own killer move, and it made him feel so depressed that he almost vomited blood. He hadn't lost to his opponent's killer move, but to his own killer move. Clang! Another deafening clang resounded, and the 8th blood fiend sword light was shattered. However, the blood fiend sword in Ao Watchang's hand was sent flying as well. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and he was sent flying hundreds of kilometers away. There was nothing more unfortunate than being defeated by oneself. Ao Watchang was known as the Battlemaster Emperor, and his combat strength was so formidable that he was practically invincible among Monarch Realm experts. The killer move that he'd executed with his full strength had been used on himself instead. This was something that Ao Watchang had never dreamed of, and yet it had happened. The primordial Emperor's yarn didn't chase after him. A figure rushed over from the distance and caught the falling Ao Watchang. Then, that person waved his hand and took back the blood-fiend sword, then turned around and left. The Battlemaster Emperor Ao Watchang had been defeated, and he'd lost in an inexplicable manner. The primordial Emperor's yarn had won, but it was also an inexplicable victory. No one knew how the primordial Emperor's yarn had done it. One of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao grasped by the primordial Emperor's yarn was too strange and terrifying. No one stepped forward, and no one questioned whether they could break the sage art. The primordial Emperor's yarn's gaze swept through the surroundings, and only a few people dared to look him in the eye. Everyone else retreated. The primordial Emperor's yarn had shocked everyone present. He didn't say anything, but everyone felt a great pressure. The primordial Emperor's yarn had used his actions to prove that he had the power to monopolize the legendary palace of deities on the moon deities. Although there were many people gathered in the surroundings, including many old antiques from the heavenly world, no one said anything. The surroundings were silent. Is there really no one who is a match for the primordial Emperor's yarn? He Tian transmitted his voice to Ji Yu Fei. Those powerful characters seemed to be hesitating. The 9 secrets of the immortal Tao are the techniques of the sages. Unless someone has grasped a cultivation technique created by other sages, they'll probably end up even worse than Ao Watchang if they were to face this immortal Emperor Yuan Ji Yu Fei said via voice transmission. Boss, don't you have the inheritance of a sage? Why don't you go and try? He Tian said. Ji Yu Fei said in an exasperated tone. Asking him to go up? Wasn't that asking him to die? Such a character could probably be killed with a single slap. Alas! Is there no one else in the heavenly world? Then let these old bones of mine join in the fun. At this moment, the extremely old man near Ji Yu Fei's group suddenly spoke. Then, he walked out step by step. Old ancestor. The 3 cultivators behind the old man were startled. Don't worry, it's time for these old bones of mine to get some exercise. The old voice wasn't very loud, but it reached everyone's ears. Chapter 1040. Yuan Jiyu Emperor's yarn had displayed his supreme sacred technique and defeated the battle emperor Ao Watchang, shocking everyone. The world was silent for a moment, and no one dared to come out. Please remember me, however. Just as those powerful figures were hesitating, an old man walked out. This was an old man who could not be any older. His hair and teeth had almost all fallen out. His face was full of age spots, and his skin was wrinkled like a layer of old tree bark. Is this old man tired of living and wants to commit suicide? Daring to come out at this time is simply courting death. The surrounding people couldn't help but be shocked when they saw this scene. They didn't sense any powerful aura from the old man, nor did they sense any fluctuations of divine power. This old man was like a mortal who was about to die. However, when he saw the old man walk out, Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian's face revealed an incomparably solemn expression. Some of the old antiques from the heavenly realm also seemed to be in deep thought. Brother Yuan Jiyu, why don't you open the formation and let this old man see the legendary palace of the moon deities? The old man's aged voice rang out. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. This old man actually dared to address immortal Emperor Yuan Jiyu as a brother. Could it be that he's actually a half-saint that took that step? Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian thought for a moment and then said, "Old man, you should leave. We just found an ancient ruin. There is no palace of the moon deities inside." What? This Yuan Jiyu is actually lying through his teeth. He really dares to monopolize the palace of the moon deities? Everyone couldn't help but be moved when they heard this. This Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian really dared to monopolize the palace of the moon deities. Was he not afraid of becoming the world's enemy? Jiyu Fei, He Tian, and the others couldn't help but look at each other. They knew very well that even if the ancient city wasn't the palace of the moon deities, it was still a true holy city. In the depths of the burial moon grounds, many nirvana rebirth experts had also encountered a great calamity. Under the extreme divine might of the mountain and river cauldron, there was nothing that could be preserved. However, one or two of the people in the depths of the burial moon grounds that were undergoing nirvanic rebirth sensed danger and awoke from their state of nirvanic rebirth, and rushed out from the depths of the burial moon grounds. Someone knew what was happening in the depths of the burial moon grounds. The divine might of the extreme path caused all living beings in the world to tremble. Even the great figures who were in the state of nirvana were awakened. How could there not be a divine trace where the divine might of the extreme path appeared? Whether or not there is a palace of the moon deities, open the formation and let me have a look. The old man was old and clumsy, as if he would die at any time, but he refused to give in. If that's the case, then there's nothing more to say. Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian said. He was straightforward and didn't say much because he knew that these people wouldn't leave so easily. Who wouldn't want to see the legendary palace of the moon deities, the palace built by the sages? Sigh. In the end, we still have to fight. The old man said helplessly. His thin body didn't seem to be able to withstand a punch from an ordinary person. However, Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian didn't take this lightly. This old man had seen him defeat the battle Emperor Ao Wuchang, yet he still dared to come out. This meant that he must have something to rely on. Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian stood in the void, surrounded by immortal qi and thousands of strands of immortal qi. He had no choice but to be cautious while facing this old man. He couldn't see through the old man's strength, so it was obvious that the other party's cultivation was similar to his. Otherwise, how could he not see through this old man? I didn't expect you to be so polite. If you won't make a move, then I will. When the old man saw that Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian didn't show any signs of making a move, he raised his right hand, which looked like a chicken's claw. Everyone knew that Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian had mastered an unfathomable secret technique that could reverse all attacks. The battle Emperor Ao Wuchang had been defeated by this secret technique. Even the old antiques from the celestial realm were nervously watching the scene. Everyone's eyes were focused on the old man. Could it be that he has cultivated a sacred technique that can decipher the 9 secrets of the immortal path? Jiyu Fei was shocked. The 9 secrets of the immortal path were sage techniques. Only sage techniques could decipher the 9 secrets of the immortal path. The old man slowly stretched out his right hand and pressed forward. There was no dazzling divine light, nor was there a mighty fluctuation of divine power. It was just a casual press. However, as the old man's right hand pressed forward, everyone felt a powerful pressure gradually acting on their bodies. It was as if an invisible hand was pressing down on them, trying to push them to the ground. The area within a radius of several hundred miles was shrouded by an unfathomable power. What kind of technique is this? Jiyu Fei and the others paled. They also felt a powerful pressure coming down from the sky, as if they were about to be suppressed by this power. This old geezer, He Tian, stared at the old man in extreme shock. He seemed to have figured out the old man's origin. His voice and body were both trembling. What's going on? Jiyu Fei and the others were startled when they noticed He Tian's strange behavior. It was rare to see He Tian like this. He seemed to be afraid and angry at the same time. His expression was very strange. Roar! Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian bellowed. His entire body shone with dazzling immortal light. 108 rays of immortal light rushed out of his body and circled around him like peerless immortal swords. At this time, Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian felt a great danger. This part of the world was being suppressed by an unfathomable power from the old man's hand. Terrifying destructive power surged towards Yuan Jiyu Immortal Emperor from all directions. The entire world seemed to be completely isolated, as if it was isolated from the outside world. Pitch-black spatial cracks began to appear and spread towards Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian, forming the universe in the palm, suppressing heaven and earth. He Tian muttered to himself. It's really that old geezer. He's not dead. How is this possible? What are you talking about? Jiyu Fei frowned. How could this He Tian be so scared? Could it be that the old man was a supreme existence from ancient times? He Tian didn't seem to hear Jiyu Fei's words. He just stared at the senile figure in front of him in horror, as if he had been struck dumb. Chaotic reversal. Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian couldn't stay calm anymore. He roared and directly used one of the 9 secrets of the immortal path, the chaotic reversal secret technique. He wanted to reverse all the attacks. However, he immediately realized that this time, the chaos reversal secret technique that he had tried so many times could not unleash its full potential. The void around Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian was distorted. The spatial cracks that were rapidly spreading towards him were shifted away by the chaotic force. However, the spatial cracks didn't spread towards the old man. A sage technique. You also obtained a sage's inheritance. Chapter 1041. Rumble. A part of the world in the old man's hand seemed to have turned into a furnace of heaven and earth, trapping and sealing the ancient Emperor Xian inside. The power of heaven and earth was vast and mighty. The void collapsed, forming pitch-black spatial cracks that bombarded the ancient Emperor Xian. This was using the destructive power of the collapsing space to attack the opponent. Such a method was so frightening that even an almighty would feel a chill down their spine. Moreover, the power of earth, water, fire, and wind surged out from the cracks in the void, covering the sky and submerging the ancient Emperor Xian inside. The ancient Emperor Xian's roar kept coming from the world in front of the old man's palm. He was in big trouble and it was difficult for him to remain calm. It had to be said that one of the 9 secrets of the immortal path, chaotic reversal, had the mighty power to reverse the situation. Although all the attacks were not reversed, it was still difficult for them to get close. Rays of immortal path divine light continued to penetrate the void as the ancient Emperor Xian's aura gradually increased. The 9 secrets of the immortal path are not invincible. The old man's aged voice resounded as he actually created a terrifying void that trapped the ancient Emperor Xian. This kind of world in the palm divine ability was really frightening. Even the powerful figures of the heavenly realms couldn't help but be shocked. Such a method was not something that an Emperor Realm existence could display. In the heavenly realms, Emperor Realm existences were equivalent to the current era Almighties of the Tenglong continent. The current era Almighties of the Tenglong continent could also be called Emperors after entering the heavenly realms. Who the hell are you? The ancient Emperor Xian's voice pierced through the void, directly coming from the void created by the old man. His tone was incomparably dignified. Who am I? The old man thought for a moment and then said with a blank expression, It's been too long, I can't even remember who I am. Alas, living for too long is also troublesome. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked when they heard this. This old man was a true super antique. Some of the old monsters of the heavenly realms couldn't recognize this old man. Could it be that he was actually someone from the Great Desolate Era? If that was the case, it would be too inconceivable. After the destruction of the untainted land, countless powerful races of the untainted land were annihilated and completely disappeared from the world. Then, after a long period of time, the laws of heaven and earth were reorganized, and the heaven realm and the human realm were completely isolated. No one from the human realm could ascend to the heaven realm, and no one from the heaven realm could descend to the human realm. It was a miracle that they had survived the darkness. After all the supreme saints had disappeared during the darkness. Preposterous. Open. Yuan Gu Emperor Xian bellowed. Then, an extremely terrifying immortal Tao divine power erupted from the terrifying void world, causing the entire void world to shake violently. Bam! The power that sealed the void between heaven and earth was shaken, and the void world that the old man had conjured with his supreme power was broken. A beam of immortal light shrouded in auspicious aura rushed out. The old man's face revealed a trace of surprise. His right palm shook, and a cut appeared on his palm. A trace of blood seeped out of the cut. However, the cut only appeared for a moment, and the blood flowed back into the old man's palm. If one didn't pay attention, they wouldn't have noticed the abnormality in the old man's hand. Only some of the old antiques from the heavenly realms noticed the abnormality in the old man's hand. Even Jiyu Fei and He Tian didn't notice it. You really did take that step. The old man's turbid eyes flickered with a bright light. The old man's expression turned solemn. He couldn't take such an opponent lightly. Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian didn't say anything. Even if he had taken that step, he wasn't invincible in the heavenly realms. The waters of the heavenly realms were too deep. Even with Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian's ability, he could only become an emperor in the eastern land. The other regions of the heavenly realms all had super sects. Even Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian wasn't willing to provoke them. Very good. This way, it won't be so boring, the old man said. Then, he walked step by step towards Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian. With every step he took, the whole world shook under his feet. When the old man took his first step, someone vomited blood and was sent flying. When he took his second step, there was no one left in a radius of 300 miles. Everyone was shocked to the extreme. The old man's steps seemed to coincide with the great Tao of heaven and earth. With every step he took, the whole world shook. Even an emperor-level expert was affected. This was the power of the great Tao. Every step he took seemed to contain the truth of heaven and earth. The great Tao's rules appeared under the old man's feet, and the power of heaven and earth in a radius of hundreds of miles was fluctuating. Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian was shocked. The old man in front of him seemed to have become the incarnation of the great Tao of heaven and earth. His whole body was surrounded by the power of the great Tao. Every step he took made Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian feel a great impact. The old man took 3 steps, and Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian's body shook 3 times. A trace of blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. It was too terrifying. The old man's combat power was enough to shock the world. This was the power of the great Tao of heaven and earth. The old man had attracted the power of the great Tao of heaven and earth. I told you that the 9 secrets of the immortal path are not invincible, the old man said. He was still walking forward. With every step he took, the power of the great Tao of heaven and earth surged under his feet. Even though they had retreated 250 miles away, everyone could still feel the terrifying fluctuations of the great Tao. It was as if an ancient divine mountain was pressing down on their hearts, making it difficult for them to breathe. Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian was the first to bear the brunt. One could imagine how powerful the impact was. Amazing. This old man is only 1 step away from the extreme grade realm, He Tian murmured. His expression changed several times. The old man's power made him very uneasy. The legendary half-step saint, the golden spirit ape Yuan Hong's fiery golden eyes flickered with golden light. His father was a sacred ape that could stand shoulder to shoulder with an extreme grade saint, so Yuan Hong's knowledge was extraordinary. If a saint doesn't appear, a half-step saint is invincible. Chu Liuqing was even more shocked. He came from a powerful force in the heaven realm, so he naturally knew many secrets of the heaven realm. There were no saints in the heaven realm, but there were legendary half-step saints. However, even a half-step saint had not appeared in the world for millions of years. Unexpectedly, a half-step saint had jumped out at this time. Even the legendary half-step saint couldn't sit still when the palace of the moon deities appeared. Half-step saint, Jiyu Fei's eyes narrowed as he stared at the old man who was walking forward. Every step the old man took caused his heart to tremble violently. Although the old man was not attacking him, he still felt an impact and his soul was shaken. The old man seemed to be on the verge of death, but Jiu Fei knew that the old man could kill him 1,000 times with just a finger. N. Chapter 1042. The old man's thin body became extremely terrifying. He walked in the void, and with every step he took, the great Tao seemed to be evolving and surging with Tao power. Damn it! Yuan Jiu Emperor Xian felt great pressure. He felt that the world around him had been completely controlled by his opponent. Even the chaos reversal secret technique, one of the 9 secrets of the immortal path, couldn't display its full power. The power of the chaos reversal secret technique could only repel the power of heaven and earth surging from all directions, but it couldn't completely reverse the attack. This was the fluctuation of Tao power. Unless Yuan Jiu Emperor Xian had cultivated the chaos reversal secret technique to the great completion realm, he wouldn't be able to trigger such a power. He can actually trigger the great Tao power of heaven and earth. I didn't expect there to be such a person in the heaven realm. Yuan Jiu Emperor Xian was moved. The old man was too powerful. I didn't want to take action. How about we find a place to have some tea and a meal? We can talk slowly. The old man's aged voice resounded. Everyone was speechless. This old man really had a personality. This old man seems to be the same as you. Jiu Fei transmitted his voice to He Tian. The old man's battle prowess was unparalleled, and everyone was afraid of him. Fat. Don't compare me with this guy. He Tian was very unhappy. From his expression, it seemed that he really knew the old man's origin. At that moment, as the old man approached step by step, a cage appeared in the void around Yuan Jiu Emperor Xian. It was a cage of heaven and earth formed by interweaving Tao power. You can't trap me, Yuan Jiu Emperor Xian said. His aura suddenly disappeared, and his whole body became blurry. In an instant, he disappeared from everyone's sight. Chaos reversal? The old man was not very surprised. He had already seen this secret technique before. When Immortal Emperor Yuan Jiu fought against the Little Peng Emperor, he had used this secret technique. It had to be said that this secret technique was really unfathomable. Yuan Jiu Emperor Xian had disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. It was as if he had become one with heaven and earth. No one could sense his presence. Even Jiu Fei, who had cultivated the martial path Heavenly Eye, and He Tian, who had cultivated the yin-yang divine eye, found it difficult to capture a trace of the primordial Emperor Xian. When the antivoid secret technique was displayed by the primordial Emperor Xian, compared to the Violet Emperor, it was like heaven and earth. They could not be compared at all. Bam! The old man took a step forward and the entire world shook. A terrifying aura spread out from his skinny body and the power of the Tao appeared under his feet. Streams of power of heaven and earth visible to the naked eye surged out from beneath the elderly man's feet, and the worldly cage up ahead was completely revealed in the air. The power of the Tao interweaved, and divine light shone resplendently. This was a holy prison condensed from the power of the heavens and the earth, and it sealed the heavens and trapped the earth. Even a semisage who had reached the great perfection of the heavens and earth would not be able to escape once he was sealed inside. Every ray of divine light that formed the cage was like a law of the world. The power of the great path circulated, causing everyone to feel an unprecedented pressure. The legendary means of a half-step saint were indeed terrifying. Swoosh! An illusory figure loomed in the worldly cage. It was almost shaken out of the void by the mighty power of the great path that came out of the cage. The antivoid secret technique of the primordial Emperor Xian was affected, and he could no longer completely merge with the world. Everyone could see his figure shrouded in the worldly cage. This figure was almost completely transparent, and everyone could only catch a trace of it. The antivoid secret technique, one of the 9 secrets of the immortal path, had an unfathomable power. That almost transparent figure was like a layer of water that flickered in the cage of heaven and earth. Wherever it passed, there was nothing that could stop that figure. 9 secrets of the immortal path. The elderly man could not help but squint when he saw this scene. His eyes flickered. He had also used a sage technique, but it seemed that it was difficult to trap the primordial Emperor Xian. The antivoid secret technique and the antivoid secret technique were used at the same time. Even the worldly cage that the elderly man had condensed with the power of the Great Path could not trap it. The body of the primordial Emperor's yarn seemed to have become a mass of air. It passed through the worldly cage that was formed by the interweaving rays of divine light and rushed out of the worldly cage controlled by the elderly man. Boom! The figure of the primordial Emperor's yarn instantly appeared in the void. An extremely terrifying imperial aura erupted from his body, shaking the entire world. Even the clouds at the edge of the sky were dispersed. You actually obtained 2 of the 9 secrets of the immortal path. How surprising! The old man waved his hand, and the cage of heaven and earth in front of him was immediately withdrawn, disappearing into his sleeve. The primordial Emperor's yarn did not speak. He looked at the elderly man with a changing expression. Finally, he turned around and left, disappearing into the large array behind him. Break in if you have the ability. The voice of the primordial Emperor's yarn came from the large array. His words were heard by everyone present. His attitude was obvious. He wanted to monopolize the palace of the moon deities. The legendary palace of the moon deities was something that even a semisage would go crazy for. How could the primordial Emperor's yarn so easily hand it over and share it with others? There was no doubt that the elderly man's strength was above that of the primordial Emperor's yarn. During the battle just now, the primordial Emperor's yarn had not attacked. He had been passively defending. It was obvious who was superior. Then, this old man will break in and see. The elderly man's tone was extremely serious. Then, he directly stepped into the void and walked toward the large array in front of him. The large array that the primordial Emperor's yarn had set up enveloped an area of 10,000 miles. This was a super divine array that was still in the process of being perfected. It was obvious that this divine array was not simple. That old thing is going to suffer. He Tian could not help but gloat when he saw that the elderly man was really going to break into the super divine array. How do you know that he's going to suffer? Xiaoqing asked. In terms of proficiency in arrays, I'm afraid that no one in the heaven realm or the human realm can compare to me. Even I am not sure that I can break this large array. He Tian was very confident in his attainments in arrays and said proudly. Sure enough, after the elderly man broke into the super divine array in front of him, a monstrous evil chi suddenly erupted from the large array as if a terrifying heavenly beast had suddenly been startled. Rumble! The entire sky and earth immediately changed color and the sun and moon lost their light. Everyone could sense the changes between heaven and earth. The entire large array had unexpectedly drawn upon the power of heaven and earth. Roar! The elderly man roared as he rushed out of the large array. His hair was disheveled and his clothes were tattered. He looked battered and exhausted as if he had suffered a great loss. Chapter 1043. The super divine formation laid down by the primordial Emperor's yarn had unexpectedly caused a semisage to suffer a great loss. It was unbelievable and everyone was shocked. Some people who originally wanted to break through the formation gave up on this idea. Even a semisage couldn't break through this divine formation. Moreover, he was covered in dust. Who would dare to break through this divine formation? Even the powerful figures of the heavenly realm didn't dare to act blindly without thinking. The old man looked as if he had been struck by lightning. The few remaining hairs on his head were standing up. His hair was disheveled and his face was dirty. His clothes were torn and his body was emitting black smoke. I will say it again. There is no palace of the moon deities here. The voice of the primordial Emperor's yarn came out from the divine formation. Everyone felt a terrifying power condensing. The sky changed color and the sun and moon lost their luster. The power of heaven and earth was forcibly gathered by the mysterious power of the divine formation. Rays of divine light formed from the power of heaven and earth rushed over from all directions. Each ray was more than 10 miles long like a shocking divine rainbow. Such a scene was absolutely rare even in the heavenly realm. What kind of divine formation did the primordial Emperor's yarn lay down? Everyone was shocked. Outrageous. Does he really dare to do this? Monopolizing the palace of the moon deities? Does he really think that he can rely on a divine formation to block everyone in the world? Some old antiques were very disdainful after listening to the words of the primordial emperors Yan. There were 5 emperors Yan and 4 god emperors. Only the god emperor of the southern mountains had made a move. The other emperor-level characters hadn't made a move yet. The real experts were still watching. The heavenly realm definitely had more than one semi-sage. Each of the sects had a deep foundation. Little Yuan Jiyu, come out and fight if you have the gut. The old man cursed. He didn't have the demeanor of a peerless expert anymore. He had suffered a great loss and was very angry. If you have the guts, come in again. The voice of the primordial Emperor Xian resounded from the divine formation. How could he come out again? The old man's methods were simply too powerful. This old man had definitely received some sort of inheritance from a sage. Even a supreme divine technique like the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao could be suppressed. The technique the old man used was definitely comparable to the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao. This made even primordial Emperor Xian's heart palpitate. If it weren't for the fact that he had mastered the antivoid secret technique, he would have been in real danger. You're pissing me off. Do you really think I can't do anything to you? The old man was furious. Show me what you've got. Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian said. He was determined not to go out. This divine array could definitely block any existence below the level of a supreme saint. Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian was very confident in the divine array that he had set up. Unless a supreme great path saint came personally, no one would be able to break this divine array. Very good. The old man was so angry that he laughed. Then, he began to carve in the air. Mysterious and ancient runes were carved in the air by the old man using supreme divine arts. This old thing. He Tian's eyes almost popped out when he saw this. The old man was setting up a formation that He Tian was very familiar with. This was a formation that he had created. Soon, the runes that were engraved in the void began to emit waves of divine power. A divine formation was taking shape. When the old man finished carving the last rune, countless runes instantly blossomed with divine light. An endless amount of heaven and earth chi frantically gathered towards the divine array. Old ancestor. The 3 cultivators that the old man had brought along couldn't help but be moved when they saw this. They knew that the old man was truly enraged. He actually wanted to go all out against Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian. The 3 cultivators were obviously the old man's juniors. Meanwhile, the old man had already jumped into the divine array that he had set up. He sat cross-legged in the center of the divine array and circulated his supreme power to activate the divine array. Rumble. The heavens and earth shook. The divine array that the old man had set up was actually competing with the super divine array that Yuan Jiyu had set up. A small portion of the heaven and earth chi that had gathered from all directions was actually being devoured by the divine array that the old man had activated. The old man who was sitting cross-legged in the divine array emitted divine light. It was as if he had turned into a celestial emperor. He had a dignified appearance as he attracted the heaven and earth chi to his body. Break for me. As the endless heaven and earth chi gathered, a huge Dharma form emerged from the old man's body. It was a faint and illusory Dharma form that was thousands of feet tall. This was the heaven and earth Dharma form. The figure that was thousands of feet tall stretched out its right palm and directly slapped the super divine array in front of it. The heaven and earth void was annihilated under the palm of this heaven and earth Dharma form. The old man had relied on the power of the divine array to increase his combat power to an unbelievable level. When the palm slapped out, it was as if the heaven and earth were attacking. Bang! The big palm directly slapped into the super divine array in front of it. Countless runes of the array collapsed. The old man's attack had actually created a gap in the super divine array. Everyone was surprised and happy when they saw this. It seemed that the super divine array set up by Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian was not unbreakable. However, the people were not done being happy. The gap in the divine array that had been created by the heaven and earth Dharma form was quickly repaired. The runes of the array reformed and the divine array operated as usual. It was as if it had not been attacked at all. This, the old man stopped. If such an attack could not destroy the super divine array, It was no wonder that Yuan Jiyu was so fearless. Could it be that only a supreme saint could break this super divine array? I didn't expect Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian to be so powerful that he could actually set up such a super divine array. Is there really no one who can break this super divine array? Even if all the sects use their trump cards, I'm afraid that they are not very confident. Someone whispered. This super divine array had suppressed many people. Even a half-step saint was helpless against it. They would only be sending themselves to death if they went up. This is a divine array derived from a corner of the extreme divine array. How can it be broken so easily? He Tian said in a low voice. What? Everyone was shocked to hear this. How could this Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian be so lucky? Not only did he obtain 2 of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao, but he also obtained a corner of the extreme divine array. Although the sacred formation was not complete and it was difficult to display the true power of the extreme Tao sacred formation, it was enough. Even a half-step saint would suffer a great loss when he entered the formation. The old man used all kinds of methods but was still unable to break this super divine array. In the end, he could only give up and curse at Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian before leaving with the 3 cultivators. After the old man left, the super divine array gradually calmed down. The terrifying fluctuations also disappeared into the depths of the super divine array. The heaven and earth apparitions produced by the super divine array also disappeared. The surrounding area was completely silent. No one spoke as they were all shocked by Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian's methods. This super divine array was definitely one of Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian's trump cards. Chapter 1044. The valley was overgrown with weeds and rocks, devoid of spiritual energy. Dead trees and even the skeletons of some beasts could be seen everywhere. This was a desolate valley. There were no powerful beasts, and even decent beasts were rarely seen. On the other hand, Jiyu Fei and the others had entered such a valley before disappearing into thin air. There was no trace of them at all. After Jiyu Fei's group disappeared for a while, some mysterious figures began to appear around the valley. It turned out that Jiyu Fei's group had already been targeted. Some people paced back and forth outside the valley. Then, some people entered the valley. Soon, these people came out with puzzled and doubtful expressions. Finally, a terrifying figure appeared in the valley. This was a figure shrouded in black energy, emitting a chilling aura. Following this person's arrival, the temperature of the entire valley dropped sharply. What's going on? Did they really disappear into thin air? How is this possible? That person muttered to himself. Then, this mysterious person also left after circling around the valley. There were no fluctuations coming from the valley. Jiyu Fei's group definitely didn't use a void shifting technique to cross the void, nor did they use a formation to teleport out. Therefore, those who followed Jiyu Fei's group didn't know where Jiyu Fei's group went. Jiyu Fei's group didn't leave. Instead, they entered the inner world. An inner world was something only a few people could open, and the existences who had an inner world were all big shots in the heavenly realm. No one would have thought that Jiyu Fei could control an inner world. Brother Jiyu, you really surprised me. Yuan Hong couldn't help but be stunned when he entered Jiyu Fei's inner world. Even the golden essence Holy Ape's son was shocked by Jiyu Fei's divine land. This was definitely a rare divine land in this world. Immortal spiritual energy was vast and mighty. Spiritual mountains and peaks could be seen everywhere. Spiritual springs gushed out from the ground, mountain streams flowed, and immortal birds and beasts could be faintly seen in the mountains, occasionally letting out loud cries. Every blade of grass, every tree, every bird, beast, insect, and fish was full of spirituality. Especially in the depths of this divine land, there were several strands of spiritual energy surging into the sky. That was the purest life essence energy between heaven and earth, and there were several divine springs of life. The life essence chi from the divine spring of life nourished this divine land at all times. There were even immortal divine herbs growing around the divine spring of life. There were only a few stalks of immortal godly medicine in the world. Legend has it that they were born from the ancestral chi of the world at the beginning of the world, and they possessed inconceivable divine effects. There's actually an ancestral dragon divine grass here, When Yuan Hong arrived near the largest divine spring of life in the depths of this divine land, he immediately revealed an extremely shocked expression. Beside the divine spring of life, there was a divine herb that looked like an ancestral dragon. A medicinal fragrance wafted in the air, intoxicating everyone. It really is the legendary immortal ancestral dragon grass. When Chu Liuqing saw the divine herb that was rooted beside the divine spring of life, he was petrified on the spot. He was extremely shocked. Who were these people? How could they have immortal divine herbs? It should be noted that the immortal godly medicine was even rarer than the supreme sage. During the ancient times, only a few of the strongest supreme sages possessed the immortal godly medicine. The Golden Spirit Ape clan also had an immortal divine herb. However, this immortal divine herb had disappeared with the disappearance of the elder sacred ape. Why is the Dragon clan's immortal divine herb here? Yuan Hong asked in confusion. The Dragon clan's immortal divine herb should be in the hands of the Dragon clan. Did you guys break into the Dragon domain? Did you guys steal the ancestral Dragon divine herb? Chu Liuqing also came back to his senses, but he was stunned after hearing Yuan Hong's words. Dragon domain? What kind of place is that? Ji Yufei asked. They didn't know the existence of the Dragon domain. You don't even know about the Dragon domain. Yuan Hong and Chu Liuqing looked at Ji Yufei as if they were looking at a monster. In the heaven realm, there was actually someone who didn't know about the existence of the Dragon domain. This was really surprising. Could it be? He Tian pondered, but he wasn't sure. After all, countless years had passed, and he didn't know if that place could be preserved after the great calamity. The Dragon domain is the ancestral land of the Dragon clan. According to legend, it is a world created by the dragon ancestor. In ancient times, the Dragon domain was also called the Dragon domain. Yuan Hong explained. He was the son of the Golden Spirit Ape, but he had once entered the Dragon domain with his old father. However, that was already in the late period of the Great Desolate Era. I didn't expect there to be such a place in the heaven realm. Ji Yufei couldn't help but realize that the origin of the Dragon clan was in the heaven realm. All races have their ancestral land. That is the place where their ancestors were born. Yuan Hong said. The ancestral land of the Golden Spirit Apes was the ancestral King Mountain, which was refined by the ancestors of the Golden Spirit Apes into a world independent of the macro world. I see. Ji Yufei nodded. We didn't steal the ancestral dragon divine medicine. We obtained it from a mysterious place, Xiaoqing said. They were not scoundrels who stole the immortal divine medicine. The ancestral dragon divine medicine was obtained by Ji Yufei and the others in the sky market. Just as Yuan Hong was about to say something, a strange fluctuation suddenly came from a mountain in the distance. Then, a seven-colored divine rainbow appeared in the sky above the mountain. The rainbow fell from the sky and entered the mountain peak. Everyone was shocked. They saw a ball of resplendent flames rising from the top of the spirit mountain. The flames had 9 colors, and the 9 colors were constantly changing. 9-colored divine flame. When Yuan Hong and Chu Liuqing saw the blazing flames rising from the top of the mountain, their countenances immediately changed. That was the 9-colored divine flame, a terrifying divine flame used to refine divine weapons or alchemy pills. Not only could this divine flame smelt divine iron and gold, but it was also used by some alchemy grandmasters to refine elixirs and elixirs. Someone is refining elixirs. Chu Liuqing exclaimed. The 9-colored divine flame wrapped a huge cauldron and floated in the sky above the mountain peak. At this moment, the sky above the mountain peak changed color, and a 7-colored light flickered. The entire world gradually darkened, and a terrifying aura from the heavens and earth filled the air. Everyone felt a great pressure bearing down on them. How is this possible? Xiaoqing, He Tian, Balon, and the others felt the strong pressure. They couldn't help but change their expressions. They already knew what was going to happen. It's the tribulation clouds. Ji Yufei couldn't help but frown when he saw this strange phenomenon. In the sky above the mountain peak, there was a powerful force of heaven and earth condensing rapidly. It was unknown where the tribulation clouds came from, but they soon covered the entire sky. Bolts of lightning flashed in the dark tribulation clouds, constantly roaming. The aura of destruction was vast and mighty between heaven and earth. Who is refining elixirs that can actually attract the heavenly tribulation? Chu Liuqing's voice was trembling. He couldn't believe what was happening in front of him. Boom! A bolt of lightning the size of a mountain fell from the sky, bombarding the foot of the spiritual mountain. The whole mountain shook violently. A bottomless pit appeared at the foot of the spiritual mountain. Seeing this scene, everyone couldn't help but be dumbfounded. The heavenly tribulation attracted by the person on the mountain was extremely terrifying. Even Ji Yufei and Yuan Hong felt a little apprehensive. It's Yang Er. Ji Yufei activated his martial path heavenly eye. A purple light flickered between his eyebrows. He saw a slender figure floating under the 9-colored cauldron. It was a girl in an emerald green dress. She looked like a little fairy. The girl was solemnly looking at the cauldron in the sky. Her hands were constantly forming hand seals, shooting rays of divine light at the cauldron in the sky. Grandmaster, you're finally back. At this moment, a fair and plump youth rushed out from the nearby forest. He arrived in front of Ji Yufei and bowed to Ji Yufei. This fellow was the son of Ji Yufei's disciple, Ji Yuzhong. He had been tossed into his inner world and ignored by Ji Yufei ever since. Little fatty Ji Yu almost burst into tears when he saw Ji Yufei. This time, he didn't want to stay in this godforsaken place anymore. There was nothing here, not even a shadow. Grandmaster Aunt Yang Er was about to refine the legendary heaven-defying pill again. After asking little fatty Ji Yu to help her pick the herbs, she no longer paid any attention to the little fatty. Only a bunch of lifeless undead creatures were roaming around in the small world. Little fatty was feeling extremely bored in this sacred cultivation ground. He kept thinking of going out. If other cultivators were to enter this place, even Ji Yufei wouldn't be able to chase them away. Needless to say, this little fatty really didn't know how lucky he was. How could Ji Yufei have the time to pay attention to little fatty at this time? His mind had long been tied to the pharaoh-like girl on the mountain peak. The heaven-defying pill is indeed heaven-defying. Hei Tian was also extremely shocked. Everyone was startled. The pressure from the sky was so great that they almost couldn't breathe. Ji Yufei and the others could still feel such a strong pressure even though they were far away from the heavenly tribulation. One could easily imagine how much pressure the girl on the mountain peak was enduring. The green-robed girl on the mountain peak had a trace of blood seeping out from the corner of her mouth. She was trying her best to resist the pressure, using her immortal force to activate the cauldron floating in the sky. A medicinal fragrance was emitted from the cauldron. The fragrance could be smelled even from 100 li away. How is this possible? Yuan Hong and Chu Liuqing were stunned. Someone had actually refined a cauldron of godly pills and triggered a heavenly tribulation when they were done. Even the heavens were jealous of them, sending down a lightning tribulation. This cauldron of godly pills was definitely a heaven-defying pill. Chapter 1045. Rumble, the heavens and earth shook. The dark tribulation cloud fell from the sky, almost pressing down on the mountain peak. Lightning flashed in the tribulation cloud, tearing the void and emitting a horrifying aura of destruction. Under the tribulation cloud, on the mountain peak, a slender figure was struggling with blood dripping from the corner of her mouth. Above the tribulation cloud, an alchemy cauldron wrapped in a 9-colored divine flame floated under the tribulation cloud. The 9-colored divine flame flickered. The green-robed girl repeatedly formed hand seals to activate the cauldron. This furnace of heaven-defying divine pills was about to be completed. This was the most critical moment. Success or failure depended on this one move. However, the girl didn't expect to trigger the heavenly tribulation. This was not the outside world, but the inner world of Ji Yufei. Even in the outside world, there wouldn't be a heavenly tribulation. For thousands of years, there hadn't been a heavenly tribulation on the Tenglong continent. The law of heaven and earth had changed. No one could ascend from the Tenglong continent. Even if one became an immortal, he could only be an earth immortal. It was difficult to become a real celestial immortal. Yang Er was careless. She didn't know that Jiyu Fei and the others had entered the heavenly realm when the Sky Tower opened the passage to the heavenly realm. The law of heaven and earth in the heavenly realm didn't change much. In the heavenly realm, some heaven-defying monsters who were envied by the heavens could trigger the heavenly tribulation when they broke through. Of course, the heavenly tribulation wasn't common even in the heavenly realm. Jiyu Fei's world already had the embryonic form of a world. It had unlimited potential and could grow into a perfect world. The cauldron of divine pills refined by Yang was no small matter. It actually caused a heavenly tribulation to descend on this part of the world. Even Jiyu Fei was dumbfounded. He was the master of this world. He sensed the fluctuation of the power of heaven and earth. He was shocked to find that 1/10 of the power of heaven and earth had turned into the power of the heavenly tribulation. This was too terrifying. 1/10 of the power of heaven and earth was comparable to a half-sage. This heavenly tribulation definitely had the power to kill an almighty. Oh no! Jiyu Fei's expression changed when he came to this conclusion. Yang was only in the immortal realm. It was impossible for her to resist this heavenly tribulation. Boom! At this moment, a purple lightning bolt as thick as a mountain struck down from the pitch-black tribulation cloud, directly striking the medicine cauldron on the mountain peak. Swoosh! The moment the lightning struck, Jiyu Fei's figure became blurry and disappeared from where he stood. In the next moment, he appeared on the mountain peak beside Yang. When Yang saw Jiyu Fei's arrival, she couldn't help being pleasantly surprised. Her entire body nearly went limp. The boundless pressure from the sky actually disappeared the moment Jiyu Fei arrived. This made Yang heave a sigh of relief. Jiyu Fei stood at the peak of the mountain and raised his head. At this moment, the huge purple lightning had already blasted the cauldron that was surrounded by the 9-colored sacred flame. Boom! The heavens and earth shook violently. A destructive aura swept across the heavens and earth. Purple snakes danced wildly as the sky above the mountain peak was torn apart by countless purple lightning bolts. However, a miraculous scene took place. Not a single purple lightning bolt was able to get close to where Jiyu Fei was standing, as if a mysterious force was shrouding the entire mountain peak. The medicine cauldron floating above the mountain peak was almost struck down by the purple lightning bolt. It shook violently, and the 9-colored sacred flame on the cauldron was almost destroyed. Shit! Yang was shocked upon seeing this. She immediately rushed forward and pointed her right index finger at the center of Jiyu Fei's brows. A mystical ray entered Jiyu Fei's Niwen Palace. Hei Tian, Yuan Hong, and the others were drenched in cold sweat after witnessing this scene from afar. This Jiyu Fei, it was as if Jiyu Fei had placed his life in Yang hands. If Yang had wanted to kill Jiyu Fei, she could have easily destroyed Jiyu Fei's Niwen Palace. The Niwen Palace was the place where the nascent soul resided, and it was the Achilles heel of all human cultivators. If the Niwen Palace was broken, then in a light case, one's cultivation would go down the drain, and in a serious case, one's soul would perish. Jiyu Fei was confident that Yang would not harm him, which was why he had allowed Yang to point her finger at the center of his brows. Yang finger contained a strand of divine sense. With a single thought, Jiyu Fei completely digested the information contained in the strand of divine sense that Yang had transmitted into his Niwen Palace. Jiyu Fei immediately learned the method of refining the law-defying godly pill. He then sat down with his legs crossed and performed a hand seal to unleash streams of God force to control the medicine cauldron floating above his head. Bang! The 9-colored godly fire that was almost destroyed by the heavenly lightning immediately burned brightly again, as if a 9-colored sun had appeared in the heavens and earth. Xiaoqing, Hei Tian, Yuan Hong, and the others who were 100 miles away felt waves of heat coming from the front, causing their mouths to dry up. A medicinal fragrance lingered in the heavens and earth as the law-defying godly pill was taking shape. The 9-colored godly fire surged above the medicine cauldron and gradually formed a 9-colored lotus. Rumble, bolts of purple lightning struck down from the tribulation clouds in the sky. Each bolt of lightning was as large as a mountain. If they were to strike the ground, the entire region would sink. The purple lightning struck the medicine cauldron that was supported by the 9-colored godly fire. The godly fire burned and the medicine cauldron shook. The heavenly lightning was so powerful that it could destroy everything, but it could not destroy the medicine cauldron. Although the medicine cauldron shook from the heavenly lightning, it did not fall from the sky. Jiu Fei's strength was definitely not something that Yang Er could compare with. Most importantly, the owner of the heavens and earth was Jiu Fei, so he could use the power of the heavens and earth at will. The heavens' retribution was finally fully activated. The void within 100 miles turned into a sea of purple lightning. The destructive power shook the entire heavens and earth. The entire mountain was completely drowned in lightning. The power of the heavens and earth was so powerful that no one could see what was happening inside. Even though He Tian had cultivated the yin-yang divine eyes and Yuan Hong had the golden eyes fiery eyes, it was difficult for them to see Jiu Fei and Yang Er, who were drowned in the heavenly lightning. The heavens' retribution was so terrifying that even if a great being were to come, his body and soul would probably be destroyed. Everyone retreated to 1,000 miles away. The power of the heavens' retribution was so strong that no one dared to approach it. Although everyone was shocked by the horror of the heavens' retribution, they were not worried about Jiu Fei and Yang Er, who were in the heavenly lightning. Because Jiu Fei was the owner of the heavens and earth, he could completely control this small world. The power of the heavenly lightning was also formed by the power of the heavens and earth. Under Jiu Fei's control, Jiu Fei could actually make the heavens' retribution invisible with just a thought. Chapter 1046. Black tribulation clouds gathered from all directions and pressed down from the sky. Bolts of purple lightning seemed to be bombarding down from the ninth heaven, turning the void within a radius of 100 miles into a sea of lightning. The purple lightning wreaked havoc and even the void was torn apart. The scene was terrifying to the extreme. Even Yuan Hong, who was an experienced and knowledgeable great ape emperor, was shocked. The power of heaven and earth could intimidate all living things. Even Emperor Realm experts would tremble in fear, let alone Erebus and the others. The destructive aura of the heavens' retribution made everyone feel uneasy. This was the power of heaven and earth. No one believed that they could go against heaven and earth. Jiu Fei's inner world came from Li Xuandao, the ancestor of the god race. Li Xuandao had refined it for countless years. Li Xuandao had also moved the heavenly spring of life from the hell path into this divine land. As a result, this divine land was filled with endless vitality and spiritual qi. It had unlimited potential for growth. This small world already had the embryonic form of a perfect greater heaven and earth. The laws of heaven and earth were operating so that this small world was in a state of balance and could adjust itself. However, the birth of the heaven-defying divine pill had attracted the jealousy of heaven and earth, causing the purple lightning retribution to descend on this small world. This was the law of heaven and earth preventing the birth of the heaven-defying divine pill. This heaven-defying divine pill incurred the jealousy of heaven and earth. Even heaven and earth did not allow it to be born. From this, one could imagine how powerful this divine pill was. He Tian, Xiaoqing, and the others were nervous and worried. They were also looking forward to it. The alchemy cauldron Dao was mysterious and mysterious. It was also a cultivation method passed down by the supreme Dao ancestor. This cultivation method was different from the others. It walked the path of cultivating the body through alchemy. One's cultivation was directly related to the divine pill that was refined. In ancient times, there was a case of someone directly ascending in 100 days after consuming a divine pill. According to legend, it was a woman who stole the divine pill of the Western Empress and ascended to the heavenly realm. The heaven-defying divine pill that Yang Er refined was many times more precious than the divine pill that could allow one to ascend. It should be known that the divine pill used immortal divine medicine as a catalyst. It would not be an exaggeration to call such a divine pill a divine pill. At this time, the tribulation clouds in the sky had completely pressed down. The destructive aura was vast and mighty between heaven and earth. No one could see the situation inside the tribulation clouds. Yang Er, who was at the peak of the mountain, was stunned by the scene in front of her. Jiu Fei had already flown up into the air, sitting cross-legged on top of the medicinal cauldron. He seemed to have transformed into an ancient god of thunder, summoning purple lightning from all directions to bombard the medicinal cauldron below. The endless purple lightning formed a purple lightning ball with a diameter of several hundred meters. Tens of thousands of purple lightning bolts were like purple dragons circling around the lightning ball. A medicinal fragrance drifted down from the sky. As Yang breathed, she felt all the pores in her body open up. The essence that she expended actually recovered gradually. In the medicinal cauldron, the 9-colored divine fire flickered. On the surface of the medicinal cauldron, ancient runes were faintly discernible. There was actually a trace of the aura of the great Tao rippling. Jiyu Fei used an ancient cauldron to suppress the mountain peak. The terrifying purple lightning would disappear when it approached the mountain peak. Although the entire mountain was shrouded in tribulation clouds, the purple lightning did not destroy a single blade of grass or tree on the mountain. At this time, Yang was standing beside the ancient cauldron that was taller than a person. The mountain and river cauldron suppressed a part of the void. Even the power of the heavenly tribulation was repelled. The power of an extreme Tao sacred artifact was truly frightening. It could even resist heaven and earth. At this time, Jiyu Fei had received a portion of the skill of refining the heaven-defying divine pill from Yang. He replaced Yang and continued to refine the heaven-defying divine pill. He was the master of this small world and could control the heaven and earth powers of this small world at will. Although he had summoned tens of thousands of purple lightning bolts, he did not suffer any impact on his body. In this small world, he was an omnipotent supreme god. He guided the power of the heavenly tribulation and gathered it into the cauldron below. Thousands of purple lightning bolts bombarded the cauldron endlessly. The 9-colored divine flame outside the cauldron had been dispersed by the lightning, but the divine flame inside the cauldron hadn't been extinguished. The divine flame wrapped around the liquid body fluid and continued to refine it. Strands of lightning seeped in from outside the cauldron, entering the fist-sized ball of divine liquid that was enveloped by the 9-colored flames. Purple bolts of lightning were imprinted on the almost solid divine liquid. When Jiyu Fei sensed the changes in the cauldron, he couldn't help but be incomparably shocked. Was this borrowing the heavenly tribulation to absorb the energy of the world's great Taos? This was simply unimaginable. Heavenly tribulations were lightning tribulations that descended from the heavens. They contained the power of the great Tao, and the divine liquid in the cauldron could actually condense the power of the great Tao. No wonder it was called a heaven-defying divine pill. It turned out to be a divine pill that contained the power of the Tao. Although it was not the complete great Tao of the world, it was only a tiny fragment of the great Tao. Even so, this was shocking enough. The fact that a heaven-defying divine pill could imprint the Tao left Jiyu Fei dumbfounded. It was truly unimaginable. The liquid that was enveloped by the 9-colored divine flame seemed to be transparent. There seemed to be countless colorful lights flowing around it, constantly changing into various shapes. Flowers, trees, birds, beasts, and even the silhouettes of the human race were all evolving above the divine liquid. Bolts of purple lightning struck in from outside the cauldron. Wherever they passed, the divine liquid would be imprinted with a bolt of lightning before disappearing into the divine liquid. The fragments of the great Tao were accumulating. Jiyu Fei didn't dare to be negligent. He knew that if he could truly refine this heaven-defying divine pill, it would be a turning point for him. Such a divine pill contained fragments of the great Tao. Not only could it increase one's cultivation, but it could also aid one's martial path. If he could comprehend it, Jiyu Fei's cultivation would definitely improve greatly. The alchemy method that Yang had imparted to him was mysterious and unpredictable. With his cultivation, he could completely control the cauldron and the 9-colored divine flame. The 9-colored divine flame burned fiercely in the cauldron. This divine flame seemed to be even more powerful than the solar true fire. It could smelt all things. Even the 9 drops of blood essence taken from the immortal ancestral dragon divine medicine were refined and completely fused with the other divine medicines. The immortal ancestral dragon divine medicine had long gained sentience. However, this kind of immortal medicine could not cultivate into a great demon, nor could it transform into a human form. However, it could come and go freely, and it was especially proficient in the earth escape technique. Only this kind of immortal spiritual divine medicine could produce blood essence. If this blood essence was given to a mortal, it would probably be difficult for that mortal to die even if he wanted to. The heavenly tribulation continued, but such a terrifying heavenly tribulation was nothing to Gu Fei. Everything was under his control. Chapter 1047. All living beings in the pocket dimension were alarmed. The undead clan that had been hiding in this divine land also rushed out. They were Gu Fei's secret force. Cultivating in this divine land, the undead clan's strength increased rapidly. Once the three supreme sovereigns of the undead clan appeared, the entire world was filled with death chi and chilling winds. A terrifying aura spread throughout the world. Where did these inanimate beings come from? Yuan Hong immediately took out his golden spirit staff when he saw the three supreme sovereigns in the chilling wind and death chi. Brother Monkey, wait. Seeing that Yuan Hong was about to charge forward, He Tian couldn't help jumping out to stop him. He was Gu Fei's subordinate, and if he was killed by Yuan Hong, it would be a heavy loss for them. What? Yuan Hong glared at him with his golden fiery eyes. Being glared at by Yuan Hong, Erebus only felt a blinding golden light flashing in front of his eyes. He felt a tingling sensation on his face, as though he was being pricked by a needle. Brother Yuan, those people are my big brother's subordinates. Please don't take offense. Xiaoqing also walked up and said. The undead clan was a force under Gu Fei's control. They couldn't be lost. Once this power was released, it would be enough to destroy a large sect. Gu Fei didn't use this force when he was in the Tenglong continent. Otherwise, they would have killed their way to the Dongfang clan and the Beitang clan a long time ago. The three supreme sovereigns of the undead clan had already reached the mysterious transformation realm 300 years ago. They had stayed in this divine land for more than 300 years. This place was filled with spirit chi, and every flower and blade of grass had spirituality. Even the stupidest person would be able to cultivate and transform rocks. After 300 years, the three supreme sovereigns of the undead clan had reached the peak of the celestial being realm. Three powerful auras spread across the area, causing even Yuan Hong's expression to change. This was especially true for one of the white skeletons. The spirit flame within the skull was as resplendent as the sun. A heart-palpitating aura was emitted from the spirit flame. I sense the aura of a sacred artifact. Yuan Hong's face sank once more. The skeleton was very extraordinary. It seemed to be wielding a sacred artifact. Additionally, there was not a hint of death energy coming from the skeleton. It looked just like an ordinary skeleton, unlike the sparkling and translucent godly bones. Even though it looked like an ordinary skeleton, it gave off a tremendous sense of oppression. Yuan Hong knew that this skeleton was the strongest among the three. Even if he were to face this skeleton, he wouldn't stand a chance against it. What is Master doing? He actually made such a big scene. Could it be that Master is forging again? It doesn't seem like he's forging a weapon. The three supreme emperors didn't approach. Instead, they stopped 1,000 miles away. They stood high up in the sky and communicated with their souls. The scene in front of them shocked the three supreme sovereigns of the undead race. At this time, Yuan Hong had already put away the golden spirit rod in his hand. He hadn't expected Gu Fei to have such power. If the three-peak celestial being realm undead sovereigns were released, the entire heavenly realm would be shaken. Among the three supreme sovereigns of the undead race, the white skeleton was the most terrifying. Yuan Hong even suspected that the skeleton had already taken that step and become a half-step sacred being. The three supreme sovereigns of the undead race had also discovered He Tian and Xiaoqing's group. However, the three supreme sovereigns only submitted to Gu Fei, not Xiaoqing's group. Sovereigns all had their own pride. Xiaoqing's group was just a mysterious transformation realm monarch. Why would the three supreme sovereigns care about Xiaoqing's group? The three peak sovereigns ignored He Tian and Xiaoqing's group. These fellows, He Tian and Xiaoqing's group, couldn't help but feel a bit annoyed. However, they also knew that the cultivation world was a cruel world where the strong preyed on the weak. How could a celestial being realm monarch lower their head to a mysterious transformation realm monarch? Gu Fei was an exception. With a cultivation of the fourth layer of the mysterious transformation realm, he could already challenge a celestial being realm monarch. This was something that rarely happened. It was enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with an extreme Tao saint in his youth. The lightning tribulation continued as purple lightning wreaked havoc. Everything within a 100-mile radius was enveloped by the lightning tribulation. Other than the mountain where Jiu Fei was, the other areas were not damaged at all. The mountain and river cauldron emitted a strand of divine might that suppressed the entire land. It dissolved the lightning tribulation that descended from the sky and protected the 100 li of land. This divine land was a land of immortal spirits. If it was destroyed by the lightning tribulation, then it wouldn't be worth it. Jiu Fei wouldn't let such a thing happen. Thunder rumbled, but Jiu Fei was like an ancient divine mountain. He sat cross-legged in the air above the cauldron, constantly attracting tribulation lightning to strike the cauldron. Bzzz. The cauldron shook again and again. The mysterious magical symbols on its body were faintly discernible. It attracted the essence energy of heaven and earth, transforming it into a 9-colored divine flame that tempered the divine pill within. The mountain-sized purple lightning constantly struck the cauldron until it was on the verge of collapsing. However, under Jiu Fei's control, the cauldron didn't fall from the sky. Yang Er stood on the mountain peak below, staring nervously at the scene in the sky. Whether or not the heaven-defying divine pill could be concocted depended on this final step. Heaven-defying divine pills were the highest level of divine pills in the pill cauldron division. They were so difficult to concoct that they could be said to be impossible in the current world. That was because there was no heavenly tribulation on the Ting-Long continent. Furthermore, immortal divine medicines were legendary items. It was practically impossible to harvest them. Fortunately, the ancient records of the Pill Cauldron Gate recorded the location of an immortal divine medicine. It was an immortal divine medicine of the immortal ancestral dragon. Yang Er got her wish of obtaining the blood essence of the immortal divine medicine of the immortal ancestral dragon. Then, she fused countless spiritual essences of heaven and earth with the blood essence of the ancestral dragon divine grass. Only then was she able to start refining the heaven-defying divine pill. Even Yang Er herself didn't have high hopes for this pill refinement. Yang Er had planned to carry out the final step of the pill refinement in the sky market. However, she hadn't expected that she would trigger the heavenly tribulation in Jiu Fei's inner world. Jiu Fei is a freak. Yang Er was dumbfounded when she saw Jiu Fei sitting cross-legged in the midst of a myriad of tribulation lightning bolts. Jiu Fei was still calm and composed despite the mountain-sized lightning bolts constantly brushing past him. Yang Er was terrified. If she had been in his shoes, she would have been flustered long ago. Then, she would have been struck by the tribulation lightning and turned to ashes. 2 hours passed. 4 hours passed. The heavenly thunder boomed and the small world shook. The tribulation clouds that covered a radius of 50 kilometers didn't show any signs of dispersing. The myriad of tribulation lightning bolts were drawn over by Jiu Fei and bombarded the medicine cauldron. It had to be said that this medicine cauldron was indeed extraordinary. It could withstand the bombardment of tribulation lightning. This medicine cauldron was definitely a precious treasure of the Pill Cauldron Gate. The heavenly tribulation raged for 3 days and 3 nights. Following a deafening roar that sounded like a dragon's roar, the myriad of tribulation lightning bolts were swallowed by a treasured cauldron that emitted a medicinal fragrance. It's done. Yang Er was so excited that she almost fainted. The medicine cauldron floating in the sky suddenly produced a heaven-devouring force that swallowed the surrounding heaven and earth essence. Even the power of the heavenly tribulation was drawn over and gathered in the medicine cauldron. The medicine cauldron seemed to have turned into a black hole that could swallow everything. Chapter 1048. The tribulation lasted for 3 days and 3 nights before it finally dissipated. However, the sky above the mountain was still changing colors. The medicine cauldron seemed to have turned into a bottomless black hole, devouring the chi from all directions. Even the power of the tribulation that had not completely dissipated was devoured by the medicine cauldron. Buzz. The medicine cauldron vibrated in the sky, emitting the roars of tigers and dragons. After the roars disappeared, The sound of raging waves hitting the shore was heard. Rumble, there seemed to be monstrous waves surging in the medicine cauldron. Soon, the shocking sound disappeared, and the ancient runes on the body of the cauldron lit up. 7 colored auspicious clouds descended from the sky. Within the auspicious clouds, dragons and phoenixes were flying, and unknown divine beasts were roaring. It was as if a primordial world was being displayed. A rare phenomenon from the sky. Impressive. He Tian and Yuan Hong were utterly astonished upon seeing this. Their eyes widened and their mouths agape. 7 colored auspicious auras descended from the sky, together with a medicinal fragrance that filled the noses of the crowd. Everyone felt that the speed at which the essence qi flowed through their bodies had increased significantly, and they felt their blood boiling. Yuan Hong, in particular, had been sealed in the metal-type soul meridian for countless years. He had survived the Dark Age, and had tempered his flesh with the metal-type ancestral qi day and night. His cultivation had reached a bottleneck. When Yuan Hong smelled the medicinal fragrance, his cultivation bottleneck showed signs of loosening, as if he was about to make a breakthrough. Ha! It's done, it's finally done. At the top of the mountain, Yang Er cried tears of joy. She stared blankly at the medicine cauldron that was emitting a mystical glow in the sky. Around the medicine cauldron were illusions of dragons, phoenixes, and various divine beasts. Meanwhile, Ji Yufei had stopped controlling the medicine cauldron. He flew down from the sky and landed on the top of the mountain. With a wave of his hand, he recalled the mountain and river cauldron that was suppressing the mountain. Ha! Ji Yufei, we did it. Yang Er rushed forward and hugged Ji Yufei. She cried and laughed like a little girl. Her tears soaked the clothes on Ji Yufei's chest. Ji Yufei was also extremely excited, because he knew that this cauldron of divine elixir was extraordinary. It was a peerless divine medicine imprinted with the great Tao of heaven and earth, containing great Tao fragments. Such a heaven-defying divine pill would greatly benefit all cultivators below the sage realm. Even the legendary half-sages would go crazy for it. Fragments of the Great Path could allow one to comprehend the Great Path of heaven and earth. This was an opportunity to become a saint. The heavenly path was heartless, and the Great Path was uncertain. Some people comprehended for countless years, but in the end, they obtained nothing. Anyone who could become a half-saint was a peerless genius, but it was difficult for the world to give birth to another supreme saint in the past millions of years. Some people were blocked by this insurmountable threshold on the path to becoming a saint for countless years. If people knew that someone had successfully refined a heaven-defying divine pill that contained fragments of the great Tao, then those super-antiques in the heaven realm would probably jump out. No one believed that there were only 1 or 2 half-sages in the heaven realm. There were definitely other powerful existences. At this time, the sky above the mountain was filled with auspicious clouds. Auspicious qi descended from the sky, and a medicinal fragrance floated between the heaven and earth. Phantoms of dragons and phoenixes were circling around the cauldron. Inside the cauldron, all kinds of shocking sounds came out unceasingly. The spiritual energy from all directions crazily converged, and the spiritual energy in the entire small world was rapidly decreasing. Boom! 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 A few muffled sounds came from the depths of this world. A few majestic pillars of life energy rushed out, towering between the heaven and earth, replenishing the rapidly decreasing spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Fortunately, there were a few heavenly springs of life. Otherwise, the spiritual energy of this small world would have been completely devoured by this cauldron, turning it into a lifeless red land. Finally, a bright moon and a divine sun rose from the cauldron. Yin and yang intertwined, and water and fire supported each other. This scene of heaven and earth shocked everyone. Boom! Suddenly, an enormous explosion that shook the heavens and the earth startled everyone awake. The medicinal cauldron had actually exploded with a bang, and countless fragments shot out violently in all directions. Swoosh! Ji Yufei hugged Yang Er and immediately used the desolate steps. With one step, he traveled 100 miles and dodged the attack. Rumble! The mountain that Ji Yufei and Yang Er were on was hit by the fragments of the cauldron that fell from the sky. It collapsed in an instant, and the explosion of the cauldron formed a transparent circle of spatial ripples that spread outwards. At this time, all the heaven and earth phenomena disappeared. Even Yuan Hong, He Tian, Xiaoqing, and the others who were thousands of miles away felt the danger. Several fragments of the cauldron flew towards them, and each fragment was surrounded by mysterious and ancient runes. "Let's go," Yuan Hong bellowed as he charged forward. He took out his golden spirit staff and swung it with both hands, smashing away a piece of debris. He Tian, Xiaoqing, and Bulon hurriedly helped Chu Liuqing and little fatty Jiyu up, and dodged into the distance. Roar! Yuan Hong roared furiously. He was extremely ferocious as he smashed the second fragment with his cudgel. However, his hands that were holding onto the divine cudgel were oozing blood that flickered with a golden light. Even the rim of his bowl had cracked from the impact. At this moment, 9 balls of primal chaos divine light flew out from the destroyed cauldron. Each ball of primal chaos divine light was like a primal chaos divine sun, emitting the natural essence of primordial chaos. The elixir is flying away, quick. Yang was extremely nervous. The heaven-defying elixir contained fragments of Tao. When it was born, it had a trace of intelligence, and it wanted to fly away. Don't worry. Jiyu Fei took a few steps forward and arrived at a nearby mountain. He put Yang down and soared into the sky, reaching his hand toward the sky. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 9 chaotic divine lights immediately changed their trajectory and flew toward Jiyu Fei's palm, walking right into his trap. This is my world. Trying to escape. Not so easy. Jiyu Fei was like an omnipotent god. He reached out and grabbed the 9 balls of chaotic divine light that were rushing towards him from all directions. He directly drew in the power of the world and used it to suppress the divine elixirs. The 9 elixir danced left and right in Jiyu Fei's palm, as if they were trying to escape, emitting a strong wave of spiritual qi. However, the waves of spiritual qi emitted from the elixir were quickly suppressed by the force of the world that Jiyu Fei had used. 9 chaotic divine pills appeared in Jiyu Fei's hand. Each of them was the size of a thumb, and they were densely covered in runes. The runes on the elixir were natural, as if they were created by the world, and there was a daoist aura flowing around them. Chapter 1049. A heaven-defying divine pill was indeed heaven-defying. It was actually imprinted with countless natural Tao patterns, and every divine pill had Tao rhymes circulating on it. It was simply a carrier of the great Tao. It was hard to imagine what would happen if one consumed and refined such a divine pill. Would one's cultivation soar, or would one's body explode from the Tao energy contained in the divine pill? There was no perfect thing in the world. Even a heaven-defying divine pill had its flaws. The spiritual energy and Tao energy contained in a heaven-defying divine pill were simply too immense. One had to be very careful when refining it. If one was careless, one might end up with a broken body and soul. The fragments of the medicine cauldron fell everywhere in this small world. Like meteorites falling from the sky, loud noises could be heard everywhere in this small world. Many beautiful mountains were smashed by the fragments of the medicine cauldron. The mountains collapsed on the spot, turning into ruins. The fragments of the medicine cauldron contained the great Tao energy. Even Yuan Hong could only use the golden spirit cudgel in his hand to smash 2 such fragments before retreating. Yuan Hong's physical body was incomparably strong. His palms, which were holding the golden spirit cudgel, were split open by the impact. Golden divine blood seeped out. My medicine sovereign cauldron, Yang Er's heart ached. This medicine cauldron was the treasure of the Pill Cauldron Gate. It was a semisage artifact created by a semisage. The ancestors of the Pill Cauldron Gate had used this medicine cauldron to refine countless divine pills. With the destruction of the medicine sovereign cauldron, it would be impossible for Yang to refine more heaven-defying divine pills in the future because there was no second medicine sovereign cauldron in this world. However, at this time, Yang was thinking about the heaven-defying divine pill in Jiyu Fei's hands. Since he could refine a heaven-defying divine pill, even if she lost the medicine sovereign cauldron, it was worth it. The ancestors of the Pill Cauldron Gate had always aimed to refine a heaven-defying divine pill. However, in the past millions of years, Not a single ancestor had been able to refine such a divine pill. Today, Yang and Ji Yufei had joined hands to refine this legendary divine pill. No one could sit still. Yang was the first to charge forward, followed by Yuan Hong, He Tian, and Xiaoqing. They all charged toward Ji Yufei. Chu Liuqing did not lag behind. Even the little fatty Ji Xiaofeng flew up into the sky. "Give them to me." Yang didn't stand on ceremony. She stretched out her hand, but Ji Yufei dodged her hand. This made Yang angry, and her face turned red. Seeing Yang adorable appearance, Ji Yufei couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Yang took advantage of this opportunity and snatched the 9 heaven-defying divine pills from Ji Yufei's hand. Her pretty face immediately bloomed with joy. Everyone's eyes lit up. In front of Yang even 100 flowers paled in comparison. This is the legendary heaven-defying divine pill? Yang held the 9 divine pills in her hands. Her voice trembled with excitement. Even her hands were shaking. This divine pill actually triggered such a terrifying heavenly tribulation when it was being refined. It's really hard to imagine. Yuan Hong stared at the divine pills in Yang hands. He was also extremely shocked. Even in the ancient times, no one has ever heard of a divine pill that could trigger a heavenly tribulation. He Tian murmured in shock. The birth of a divine pill was too shocking. Even the heavens and the earth produced strange phenomena. There were dragons and phoenixes circling around it. Everyone knew that this divine pill might really have a heaven-defying effect. It seems that I also contributed a lot. Do you want to share some with me? Ji Yufei asked. This kind of divine pill was also very attractive to him. It could be said that he was the one who refined this divine pill. Of course, he knew the effect of this divine pill. A divine pill that contained fragments of the great Tao would make even a half-step saint go crazy. Yang thought for a while. Then, she took out 2 jade bottles and put 5 divine pills into one. She then plugged the bottle and passed it to Ji Yufei. After Ji Yufei took it, Yang put the remaining 4 divine pills into the second jade bottle and put it away carefully. "Hihi, you are really generous. You actually gave me 5 divine pills," Ji Yufei said with a smile. Yang was very obsessed with the Tao of alchemy. Otherwise, she would not have thought of refining divine pills. "This is what you deserve." Although Yang heart ached, she knew very well that if it wasn't for Ji Yufei who continued to refine the pill on her behalf, not only would she not be able to refine a heaven-defying pill, but she would also lose her life. The last step of refining the divine pills was absolutely impossible for Yang. She could not resist the terrifying heavenly tribulation. Boss, He Tian stared at the jade bottle in Ji Yufei's hand, wishing that he could pounce forward and snatch it away. That was a heaven-defying divine pill. Just the smell of the medicinal fragrance was enough to make one's blood boil. If one were to consume such a divine pill, it would be difficult for their cultivation and strength to not soar immediately. It wasn't just Erebus, even little Qing and Baron were staring at Ji Yufei eagerly. "All right, I am going to cultivate in seclusion." After obtaining the divine pills, Yang immediately found a place to cultivate in seclusion. She cultivated the Tao of alchemy. Although she needed pills to support her cultivation, she still needed them. On the pill cauldron path, if one had enough medicinal pills, one's cultivation could be described as advancing 1,000 miles in a day, and one's cultivation would rise very quickly. Yang wanted to use the heaven-defying divine pill to increase her cultivation. After she bid farewell, she found a valley in this small world and entered it. There's no need to rush. Ji Yufei was speechless when he saw this. He knew Yang personality. She was the kind of girl who would put her thoughts into action. Big brother, little Qing moved closer to Ji Yufei. It would be a lie to say that he was not tempted by the heaven-defying divine pellet. No one could resist such a temptation. Ji Yufei looked at Xiaoqing, then at He Tian and Balon. He then opened the bottle and poured out 3 divine pills. He gave one to Xiaoqing, He Tian, and Balon. Chu Liuqing also wanted it, but before he could say anything, Erebus noticed him and sent him flying with a kick. Little Fatty looked at Ji Yufei eagerly. There was no need to ask, he also wanted it. The divine pills were tempting. Only Yuan Hong regained his composure after the initial shock. Brother Monkey, just as Ji Yu Fei was about to say something, Yuan Hong stretched out his hand to stop him. I appreciate your kind intentions. Although divine pills are good, I, Yuan Hong, do not need to rely on external items to improve my cultivation base. As the son of the sacred ape, who could stand shoulder to shoulder with a saint, Yuan Hong had his pride. Ji Yu Fei wanted to take out another heaven-defying divine pill, but Yuan Hong didn't want it. Even Ji Yu Fei couldn't help giving Yuan Hong a thumbs up. He was actually able to resist such a temptation. My father always said that if you want to reach the peak and become the strongest, you can only rely on your own effort. Yuan Hong said. The sacred ape's words could not be wrong. Rely on yourself. Ji Yu Fei sighed. He had never relied on anyone along the way. He had only achieved his current cultivation and strength through his own efforts. However, this divine pill contained fragments of the Great Path. This was an opportunity to comprehend the Tao. Consuming the divine elixir, refining it, and comprehending the fragments of the Great Path contained within the divine elixir, if he could comprehend the Tao rhythm, it would be of great significance to Ji Yu Fei. He doesn't want it, but I want it. At this moment, Chu Liuqing, who had been sent flying by Mahakala's kick, flew over again. However, he had only just gotten close when Mahakala's kick landed on his buttocks, sending him flying again like he was riding on a cloud. Hey Tian, I'm not done with you. Chu Liuqing yelled in shock and anger. His body flailed uncontrollably as he fell from the sky. Chapter 1050. In the end, Yuan Hong did not ask for the heaven-defying divine pill. He wanted to walk his own path. He was the son of an old holy ape. Such an inheritance was no small matter. The golden holy ape was an existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the supreme sage. Even in the untainted land, it was an invincible expert that ruled the world. Chu Liuqing did not ask for the heaven-defying divine pill from Ji Yu Fei. Even Ji Yu Xiaofeng, Ji Yu Fei's grand disciple, was not given to Ji Yu Fei. Ji Yu Fei still had 2 heaven-defying elixirs in his hands. If he were to give such elixirs to little Fatty who was not even an immortal, it would only harm him. There was no way he could refine the spiritual power contained in the elixirs. The crowd gradually dispersed. Yang Er could not wait to find a place to cultivate in seclusion. Xiaoqing, He Tian, and Balon also occupied a spiritual land and went into seclusion. Ji Yu Fei also wanted to cultivate in seclusion, but Yuan Hong was not in a hurry to go out. Instead, he walked into the depths of this small world and sat beside the largest divine spring of life in the depths of this small world. He breathed in and out the essence of life and began to cultivate. Even in the immemorial era, there were not many divine springs of life. Even the golden spiritual ape clan did not have any. However, there were a few in Ji Yu Fei's inner world, which shocked Yuan Hong. Ji Yu Fei did not go into seclusion in this small world. Instead, he entered the inner world that he had refined in the Niwen Palace between his eyebrows. He controlled 3 great worlds. One of them was the small world that he had opened up when he refined the chaotic origin embryo. This small world gradually grew as Ji Yu Fei's cultivation increased. Ji Yu Fei entered this small world. This was a small world full of vitality. Although it was only a few hundred miles wide and had no sky or stars, there was a divine spring in the center of this small world that was spewing spiritual qi. This was the divine spring that Ji Yu Fei had moved into his inner world. It was the existence of this divine spring that filled this small world with spiritual qi. This divine spring was gradually transforming into the ancestor vein of earth of this small world. The ancestor vein of earth was already in its embryonic form and was nurturing a dragon pearl. This would be the first carnate divine beast to be born in this small world. Ji Yu Fei stood in the void and looked down at this small world. He felt very satisfied. He could feel the pulse of this world. With a thought, a gust of wind suddenly appeared in this small world, wreaking havoc. With another thought, the gust of wind that was wreaking havoc in this small world suddenly disappeared. In this small world, Ji Yu Fei was an omnipotent supreme god. When he wanted the wind to come, the wind would come. With a wave of his hand, heavenly thunder would rumble. With a stomp of his foot, the earth would tremble. Streams of earth chi would break out of the earth like dragons and rush into the sky. Jiyu Fei could control all kinds of heaven and earth power at will. He sensed the fluctuation of heaven and earth power in this small world and knew that the heaven and earth power in this small world could already trap and suppress a mighty. However, no mighty would be so stupid as to allow Jiyu Fei to take them into Jiyu Fei's inner world. Furthermore, the Almighties of the current era possessed great strength and divine abilities. They had probably already opened their own inner worlds. Even if Jiyu Fei controlled the three great worlds, he still couldn't be compared to the Almighties of the current era. Very soon, the various heaven and earth powers in this small world calmed down. Then, Jiyu Fei sat on the highest mountain in this small world and began to rest with his eyes closed. He wanted to adjust his body to its best state. Jiyu Fei didn't move and sat for 7 days and 7 nights. In this small world, there was no sky, no stars, and no sun. However, this small world had alternating nights and days. This small world would automatically adjust itself and pass time. Everything was growing in the direction of a perfect great world. On the 8th day, when this small world gradually brightened, Jiyu Fei let out a long breath of turbid air. Then, he woke up from his meditation and opened his eyes. It's time. Jiyu Fei's qi and blood were adjusted to their best state. His mind was clear and his state of mind was unprecedentedly calm. At this moment, Jiyu Fei's king martial body had reached a perfect level. He took out the jade bottle containing the heaven-defying divine pill and pulled out the stopper. A fragrant smell immediately floated out from the mouth of the bottle. The mouth of the bottle flickered with spiritual light and spiritual energy surged out. Jiyu Fei poured a divine pill onto his palm. The divine pill, which was covered in the patterns of the great Tao of the immortal Tao, emitted a layer of blurry divine light. The innate patterns of the great Tao on the divine pill seemed to be moving. The natural great Tao patterns were magnified infinitely under Jiyu Fei's martial path heavenly eye. It was as if they were imprinted in his eyes. The Tao patterns intertwined and the Tao rhymes circulated. Jiyu Fei stared at the heaven-defying divine pill in his hand in a daze. However, Jiyu Fei quickly regained his senses. Then, he plugged the mouth of the jade bottle and put it away. Then, he swallowed the heaven-defying divine pill in his hand. After Jiyu Fei swallowed the heaven-defying divine pill, he felt as if a divine fire was burning in his stomach. He didn't dare to be careless. He immediately used his mysterious art to refine the heaven-defying divine pill. Very quickly, a ball of 9-colored divine light appeared on Jiyu Fei's abdomen. Within the divine light, there seemed to be mysterious Tao patterns faintly appearing. Although they were blurry, there was a trace of Tao rhythm flowing within them. The spiritual energy and Tao rhymes contained in the heaven-defying divine pill gradually melted in Jiyu Fei's body. Jiyu Fei felt as if he had caught a trace of Tao rhymes. However, it was like the reflection of the moon in a mirror. Although he had sensed the great Tao, he couldn't grasp it or touch it. Jiyu Fei didn't expect to comprehend the Tao by relying on a heaven-defying divine pill. It wasn't realistic. After all, this wasn't the first time that a heaven-defying divine pill had appeared. The founding ancestor of the Pill Cauldron Gate had once refined a batch of heaven-defying divine pills. However, in the endless years, the Pill Cauldron Gate had never produced an extreme sage. There had only been one half-sage, and that half-sage was the founding ancestor of the Pill Cauldron Gate. If a heaven-defying divine pill could really help one comprehend their own great Tao, then someone from the Pill Cauldron Gate would definitely be able to conquer the world and become an invincible extreme sage. Although a heaven-defying divine pill could help one comprehend the great Tao, the probability of comprehending the great Tao was almost zero. The heaven-defying divine pill that Jiyu Fei had consumed was emitting a divine light. A divine sun seemed to appear in Jiyu Fei's abdomen, illuminating his entire body. Chapter 1051. Jiyu Fei's entire body was radiating divine light. Rays of divine light lingered around his body. Every bone and every strand of hair on his body was surging with essence. Bursts of explosive sounds came from within Jiyu Fei's body. All 365 acupuncture points on his body lit up. The vast medicinal power that surged out from his abdomen turned into a vast amount of psionic power that was drawn into all the acupuncture points in Ji Yufei's body. However, very quickly, Ji Yufei discovered that none of his 365 acupuncture points could contain such a huge amount of psionic power. Every acupuncture point was blossoming with a resplendent divine light. It was as if 365 suns had appeared on Ji Yufei's body. The entire world was illuminated. The origin energy within his body was vast and mighty. His blood qi soared into the sky. The medicinal power is actually so powerful. Ji Yufei was secretly alarmed. This heaven-defying divine pill was truly heaven-defying. Even his king martial body couldn't withstand it. His entire body felt as if it was about to explode. He felt pain all over his body. It was an intense pain. Every inch of his muscles felt like they were about to be torn apart. Every bone felt like it was about to shatter. Am I going to be reborn again? Ji Yufei was in so much pain that he broke out in a cold sweat. His clothes were soaked in sweat. Every time his body couldn't contain more origin energy, his cultivation would reach a bottleneck. On the path of martial arts, one had to cultivate one's body. Only by transforming one's body could one accommodate more origin energy. This was a necessary step on the path of martial arts. Ji Yufei clenched his teeth and endured. In the end, he couldn't help but groan in pain. His clothes turned to ash under the impact of the origin energy. Shocking cracks began to appear on his body. As the heaven-defying divine pill melted in Ji Yufei's stomach, his body had reached its limit. His king martial body showed signs of collapsing. Moreover, this was just the beginning. Beams of divine light constantly rushed out from Ji Yufei's body. They interweaved into a curtain of light around him, enveloping him within. This was the cocoon transformation technique of the martial way. Boundless divine power rippled out from Ji Yufei's body. The mountain below him instantly collapsed, and the entire heaven and earth shook. Turning one's own essence qi into silk threads and interweaving them into a cocoon of light, wrapping one's body within it. This was the first step of the martial body's rebirth. At Ji Yufei's level of cultivation, even if one's body suffered a devastating injury, one could still completely recover. The cocoon of light gradually grew larger and soon enveloped Ji Yufei completely. The sound of wind and thunder rang out from within, breaking the peace of this small world. This was a divine cocoon, as if it was nurturing an unmatched deity. The powerful aura it released shook this entire small world. It was extremely terrifying and terrifying. Ji Yufei, who was sitting cross-legged in the divine cocoon, was experiencing another transformation of his martial body. He was already mentally prepared and did not panic. He circulated his supreme mystic art, guiding the medicinal power of the heaven-defying divine pill to flow throughout his body. He wanted to refine the psionic power contained in the divine pill before he could comprehend the Tao. Soon, Ji Yufei's flesh and bones began to disintegrate. However, as his flesh and bones were disintegrating, new flesh and bones were reconstructed. This was a true rebirth. The flesh and bones of his entire body were reborn. Only those who had embarked on the martial path would use such a method. The new blood, flesh, tendons, and bones were stronger and could contain more essence energy. The process of rebirth was a long one. Time passed. Within Ji Yufei's little world, his blood qi and essence qi were vast and mighty. The entire world paled in comparison. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days passed. There were still no changes to the divine cocoon. Ji Yufei was still transforming. As time passed, the divine cocoon began to emit the aura of the great Tao. There were Tao runes circulating within. Could it be that Ji Yufei had already begun to comprehend the Tao? No one knew. Even Ji Yufei himself was a little dazed. He used the miraculous effects of the heaven-defying divine pill to temper his body. The heaven-defying divine pill contained a fragment of the great Tao. Although it was insignificant, it was an opportunity to comprehend the Tao. To Ji Yufei, this was an opportunity that could only be chanced upon. 3 months passed. There were still no other movements from Ji Yufei. 3 years passed. In this small world, there was still a mass of divine light floating. It was a divine cocoon. Ji Yufei sat cross-legged for a full 10 years. In these 10 years, his body was constantly transforming. The heaven-defying divine pill could be said to be heaven-defying. The massive psionic power could change anyone's physique. In the last year, Ji Yufei spent day and night comprehending the great Tao fragments contained in the heaven-defying divine pill. He wanted to comprehend the Tao that belonged to him. This was easier said than done. Even if there was a complete great Tao in front of him, Ji Yufei would not be able to comprehend it. It would even be difficult for him to capture a trace of the great Tao. The great Tao of heaven and earth was illusory. It could not be seen or touched. It gave Ji Yufei a feeling of helplessness. It was like a person facing a treasure but could not find the key to enter it. Right now, Ji Yufei was in such a situation. The great Tao circulated around his body. However, no matter how calmly he tried to comprehend it, he could not grasp a trace of it. It was too difficult. Even so, Ji Yufei's cultivation had soared to a level that people could only look up to in these 10 years. After the king martial body had transformed and reorganized countless times, he finally broke through to the celestial being realm. Right now, Ji Yufei was a celestial being martial emperor. After the transformation, his martial body was the king martial body. His entire body contained endless explosive power. At this time, Ji Yufei was listening to the great Tao heavenly voice. Traces of the great Tao appeared on his body. These were the natural Tao patterns that were originally imprinted on the heaven-defying divine pill. Each natural Tao pattern contained the power of the great Tao and emitted the aura of the great Tao. When the divine pill was refined, these natural Tao patterns were also refined. Ji Yufei wanted to imprint these Tao patterns on the king martial body, but he failed. After the natural Tao patterns fell off the heaven-defying divine pill, they would quickly return to the world. It was difficult to retain them. Apart from his cultivation breaking through to the celestial being realm, he did not have any comprehension. He was unable to imprint the natural Tao patterns. This was undoubtedly a great loss. It was difficult to comprehend. Even if there was an opportunity to comprehend the great Tao, it was only an opportunity. An almost impossible opportunity to comprehend the great Tao. In the end, the divine cocoon wrapped around Ji Yufei cracked. In the void of the 365 acupoints on Ji Yufei's body, there was a clear figure sitting cross-legged. That was Ji Yufei's life god. At this time, each life god was emitting a brilliant divine light, illuminating the world. Each life god gradually began to fade, and then disappeared, as if they had melted into the void. The life god disappeared, and the void of the acupoints also collapsed. An earth-shaking change occurred in Ji Yufei's body. This change shocked even Ji Yufei. He felt that the life god he had cultivated did not disappear, but had melted into every part of his body. The void of the acupoints did not disappear either, but connected together and melted into his body. At this moment, Ji Yufei's emperor martial body was like a bottomless black hole that was constantly devouring the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The life god and the king martial body were perfectly integrated. At this time, Ji Yufei could be considered to have refined his life into his body. Every inch of his flesh and blood, even every drop of blood, contained life. Even if Ji Yufei was blasted into pieces, as long as there was a drop of blood, he could be reborn. He, who was at the first celestial being realm, had the strongest life force in the world. It's time to go out. After the transformation of Ji Yufei's body was completely completed, he found a set of clean clothes and put them on. Then, he opened his inner world and walked out. Chapter 1052. As soon as Ji Yufei walked out of his small world, He Tian, Xiaoqing, Bulon, Chu Liuqing, and little fatty Jiyu Xiaofeng immediately sensed Ji Yufei's presence and rushed out from all directions. Swish! A golden figure sitting cross-legged beside the largest heavenly spring of life in the depths of this divine land suddenly opened its eyes. 2 rays of golden light shot out from its golden essence fiery eyes like rainbows. Are you out? Yuan Hong, the golden spirit ape, stood up from the ground. Golden light rippled all over his body like water waves, and golden runes circled around his body. Soon, the golden runes disappeared into Yuan Hong's body, and the surging golden essence qi also disappeared. His golden hair fluttered in the wind. It's been 10 years, Yuan Hong was a little reluctant to leave this place. Absorbing the life essence qi day and night had great benefits for him. Although it had only been 10 years, Yuan Hong's life aura was extremely powerful. 10 years of cultivation was comparable to hundreds of years of cultivation in the outside world. It's time to go out. Yuan Hong knew that he couldn't stay here forever. The cultivation method of the Golden Spirit Ape clan was somewhat similar to the path of martial arts. After 10 years of meditation, Yuan Hong's cultivation had reached a bottleneck. If he wanted to improve further, he would have to comprehend and break through in battle. Everyone rushed towards where Ji Yufei was, but Yuan Hong was the last to arrive. Unbelievable. You actually broke through to the celestial being realm and became a martial monarch. Yuan Hong couldn't help but be shocked the moment he saw Ji Yufei. Was the heaven-defying divine pill really that heaven-defying? Even Yuan Hong, the son of a sacred ape, couldn't help but be moved. It should be known that Ji Yufei was only a mysterious change realm monarch 10 years ago. In just 10 short years, Ji Yufei's cultivation had made such a shocking breakthrough. This was simply unimaginable. From the mysterious transformation realm to the celestial being realm, it only took 10 years. If this news were to spread, the entire heaven realm would be in an uproar. Even the most heaven-defying figure in the heavenly realm couldn't break through from the profound transformation realm to the emperor realm in 10 years. In fact, Ji Yufei didn't expect this either. The cultivation of the martial path was incomparably difficult. Every time one's cultivation and strength increased by a realm, one would have to pay an unimaginable amount of effort and sweat. According to Ji Yufei's estimation, it would take him at least 1,000 years to reach the celestial being realm from the fourth heaven of the mysterious transformation realm. But now, he only used 10 years. Boss, you're a heaven realm martial artist. After He Tian rushed over, he kept staring at Ji Yufei. Yin-yang divine light flickered in his eyes. He was using the yin-yang divine eyes to examine Ji Yufei. However, he was shocked to find that Ji Yufei's body was like a boundless universe. Even the yin-yang divine eyes couldn't see through it. This made He Tian inexplicably shocked. How could this be? The yin-yang divine eyes could see through all illusions and point directly to the origin of all things in the world. But now, it failed. You guys, when Ji Yufei sensed the auras of He Tian, Xiaoqing, and Bulon, he was equally shocked. Xiaoqing and the others' cultivation had also broken through. Moreover, their cultivation had broken through the celestial being realm and became half-step almighties. And what shocked Ji Yufei the most was that Yang Er was still in seclusion. He could sense a hidden power at Yang Er's location. That power made Ji Yufei's heart palpitate. Could it be that Yang Er was breaking through to the almighty realm? Thinking of this, Ji Yufei couldn't help but be moved. The Tao of Alchemy Cauldron was really mysterious. Before Yang Er went into seclusion, her cultivation was only at the 9th heaven of immortal realm. But now, Yang Er's cultivation was definitely above his. Ji Yufei couldn't help but be interested in the Tao of Alchemy Cauldron. Of course, he didn't want to cultivate the Alchemy Cauldron Gate, nor did he want to spend time on alchemy. There were 3,000 great Taos, and all of them could become saints. This saying couldn't be wrong. The Tao of Alchemy Cauldron also had the potential to become a saint. When Yang Er came out of seclusion, this world would give birth to a new empress. In the heaven realm, the current almighties were known as emperor-level experts. After Yang Er became an almighty, she would be an empress in the heaven realm. She could stand on the same level as the 5 directions emperors Yan and the 4 great celestial emperors. She would stand at the peak of the cultivation world. Is the heaven-defying divine pill really so miraculous? Ji Yufei looked at He Tian, Xiaoqing, and Bulon one by one. This couldn't be wrong. He Tian and the others' cultivation had not only broken through from the mysterious transformation realm to the celestial being realm, but they had also surpassed the celestial being realm. They were only one step away from becoming almighties. Now, He Tian, Xiaoqing, and Bulon all had the cultivation and strength of the quasi-emperor realm. quasi-emperor experts who had surpassed the celestial being realm were targets that all the forces in the heaven realm wanted to rope in. People like them might become real emperors one day. Jiyu Fei and the others came to the front of the hall that stored all kinds of treasures. They took out the immortal wine that was stored in the cellar of the hall and drank to their heart's content. They exchanged cultivation experiences with each other. During the conversation, Jiyu Fei found out that he had been in seclusion for a long time. However, for cultivators, this period of time passed in the blink of an eye. At their level of cultivation, time was the most worthless thing. As long as there were no accidents, they could live as long as heaven and earth and could live forever. Immortals and gods were immortal, but this was not absolute. This kind of immortality was only used to describe the endless lifespan of immortals and gods. In the heaven realm, which was a world full of experts, immortals and gods were not rare. There were many people who could kill immortals and gods. Even an emperor could not guarantee that he would not encounter an invincible existence one day. Even invincible existences like the Supreme Almighties had disappeared in the dark ages of the late prehistoric era. It seemed that there was nothing in the world that could exist forever. Jiyu Fei had gained a lot of enlightenment. Although he did not gain enlightenment, his state of mind had undergone a leap. The improvement of his state of mind allowed him to control the new power within his body and adapt to the changes within. In the end, everyone got drunk. Even the little fatty Jiyu Xiaofeng was hugging a jar of immortal wine and collapsed under the table. Hei Tian, Xiaoqing, and Bulon were swaying left and right, on the verge of collapsing. The immortal wine that was stored in the treasury hall was, of course, not something ordinary immortal wine could compare to. This was an immortal treasure obtained by Li Xuandao, the old ancestor of the god race. If Li Xuandao was still alive, he would have been angered to death by Jiyu Fei and the others. Even he himself was reluctant to drink this immortal wine, but it was wasted by Jiyu Fei and the others. With the cultivation of Jiyu Fei and the others, it was impossible for them to get drunk. However, everyone was very clear that they were only temporarily indulging themselves. Once they left this divine land, what awaited them would inevitably be a cruel world. In this great era where the strong rose together, there would definitely be a series of battles. The road to sainthood was built with the flesh and blood of the opponent. Even the most outstanding geniuses could not guarantee that they would not fall. Jiyu Fei and the others were really drunk. It was not their bodies that were drunk, but their hearts. This was a rare moment of peace, and for them, it was extremely precious. Chapter 1053. As the sun rose from the east, Jiyu Fei's miniature world, which had already taken shape, began to flourish with life again. The cries of various birds and beasts could be heard from time to time in the forest, and there were immortal birds flying in the mountains. This miniature world had already given birth to a sun star. This sun star operated just like the sun star in the outside world. A day in the miniature world was the same as a day in the outside world. There wasn't much difference. A day in the miniature world was a day in the outside world. With Jiyu Fei's current strength, he could already control the time and space of this world. He could draw upon this world and create a space-time field. He could speed up or slow down the flow of time in the field. If Jiyu Fei was strong enough, he could flick a finger for 1,000 years or stop time. In the outside world, even legendary extreme Dao saints would find it difficult to do this. But in this miniature world, Jiyu Fei could control everything. He was the supreme god of this miniature world. "We're going out." Everyone stood at the peak of a large mountain. Under the reflection of the morning sun, their shadows were elongated. Everyone had a different expression on their faces. 10 years had passed. Everyone was a bit nervous. They didn't know what the current situation was in the heavenly realm. They had entered this miniature world to avoid the eyes and ears of the major powers. After the battle between Little Peng Emperor and Violet Emperor, Yuan Hong realized that they were being watched. Therefore, he entered Jiyu Fei's miniature world to temporarily hide. At that time, the lost palace of the moon deities had appeared. The situation in the Eastern Earth was very complicated. Even Yuan Hong had to be careful. Some old antiques wouldn't be lenient just because he was the son of a holy ape. "Are you ready?" Jiyu Fei asked. Ready. He Tian and the others nodded. Apart from Yang who was still in seclusion, everyone was present. The undying race was on standby in this miniature world. Even the little fatty was clamoring to go to the heaven realm to experience it. Of course, Jiu Fei did not object. This little fatty was even more cunning than his father. Although Jiu Fei didn't give little fatty the only heaven-defying divine pill he did give little fatty one of the 9 transformations immortal pills he had refined before. Right now, the little fatty's cultivation had also reached a bottleneck. He was only one step away from becoming an immortal god. After his father, Jiu Zhong, he would become the 3rd person in the world to become an immortal through martial arts. To little fatty, the 9th transformation immortal realm was the step that he could successfully take. When Jiu Fei saw that everyone was ready, he began to draw upon the power of heaven and earth. The void in front of him trembled, and transparent ripples spread out like water. Swoosh! A void door appeared in the void in front of them. The aura of the outside world surged in from behind the door. It was the aura of the heaven realm. Ha ha! Heaven realm, old He, am back. He Tian laughed heartily. He rushed up from behind Jiu Fei and directly passed through the void door in front of him. However, just as He Tian's figure disappeared behind the door, a terrifying destructive force suddenly exploded outside the void door without any warning. Roar! He Tian's scream came from outside. Everyone was inexplicably shocked. They didn't know what had happened. Could it be that He Tian was so unlucky that he encountered a strong enemy as soon as he went out? Was that even possible? No. This is the aura of the heavenly tribulation, Yuan Hong suddenly said with a grave expression. Swoosh! At this moment, a figure flashed in front of the void door. A black figure rushed in from outside. Behind the black figure was a sea of lightning that emitted a terrifying destructive aura. There was no sound of thunder, only resplendent lightning. Moreover, this lightning was in 5 colors. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The entire world began to shake. Endless 5-colored lightning surged in from the outside world. The destructive power directly shook this part of the godly land. Jiu Fei hurriedly moved to close the void door in front of him. However, he found that he couldn't close the door that connected to the outside world. This, Jiu Fei couldn't help but turn pale. The void door in front of him collapsed under the silent 5-colored lightning. The void was collapsing, and the cracks were spreading rapidly. The vast might of the heavens and earth surged into this divine land from the shattered void. At this moment, everyone felt a terrifying pressure and threat that came from the heavens and earth. Damn, that damned He Tian. Everyone's expression changed. The heavenly tribulation that He Tian brought in seemed to be attracting their own heavenly tribulations. Everyone was implicated by He Tian. Their spiritual energy was vast and mighty. Rays of divine light rushed out of their bodies as if they were going to pass the tribulation together. Roar! Use the mountain and river cauldron to seal the void. Yuan Hong roared. His golden hair danced wildly in the wind. A golden spirit staff appeared in his hand as he charged forward. Bam! Yuan Hong's body surged with golden light as if he had turned into a god cast from gold. He smashed his staff forward, wanting to cut off the surging power of the heavenly tribulation. But the power of the heavenly tribulation was boundless and difficult to resist. Yuan Hong was directly sent flying. Countless 5-colored lightning wreaked havoc and chased after He Tian. Everywhere He Tian passed, mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. The 5-colored lightning silently destroyed everything. Jiu Fei didn't dare to hesitate. He directly took out the mountain and river cauldron. An ancient cauldron rushed out from above his head. The power of heaven and earth surged in all directions as it suppressed the heavenly tribulation. Buzz! The mountain and river cauldron hummed. The constantly collapsing void was immediately stabilized. The endless 5-colored lightning dissipated under the divine might of the mountain and river cauldron, turning into nothingness. The moment the sacred cauldron appeared, it immediately stabilized the world. The shattered void was rapidly mended. The 5-colored lightning was suppressed and the power of the heavenly tribulation was suppressed. As the void was constantly mended, The world was completely isolated from the outside world. The power of the heavenly tribulation could not enter this small world. Ji Yufei heaved a sigh of relief. He extended his hand to wipe away the cold sweat that had seeped out of his forehead. The surging yuan qi in his body gradually calmed down as the pressure from the outside world disappeared. His heavenly tribulation had also been triggered. If he were to undergo the tribulation in this divine land, this small world would probably be destroyed by the heavenly tribulation. Hey Tian! Ji Yufei roared angrily. This fellow was really asking for a beating. It would have been fine if he had undergone the tribulation himself, but he had nearly implicated everyone else. It had nearly destroyed this small world. Ji Yufei had an urge to tear He Tian apart. However, this fellow had already rushed into the depths of this small world. He had jumped into a divine spring of life. More than a dozen five-colored lightning bolts were chasing after him. Boom! A large star rose from the divine spring of life. The vast and boundless power of the stars scattered the dozen five-colored lightning bolts that were bombarding down from the sky. Erebus had placed his almighty saint weapon in the divine spring of life, nourishing it with the endless life essence of the spring day and night. After 10 years, Erebus had actually refined this almighty saint weapon to an even greater level than before. He Tian rushed out of the divine spring of life and arrived in front of Ji Yufei and the others. His hair was disheveled and his face was pitch black. His clothes were tattered, and his skin was charred black. How unlucky! I didn't expect it to be the 5-elemental 5-sound tribulation lightning. Unlucky my ass. Ji Yufei raised his leg and kicked this guy away. Everyone was almost killed by this guy. If not for Ji Yufei having an extreme sacred tool like the mountain and river cauldron in his hands, everyone would have been finished. Everyone glared at him. He Tian also knew that he had provoked everyone's anger. He had no choice but to swallow his anger and silently flew back from afar. Yuan Hong walked over and said, "We can't just go out like this." He had just collided with the power of the 5-tone tribulation lightning. This kind of tribulation lightning was impossible to shake because it was the might of the heaven and earth. What should we do? Everyone did not know what to do. They had overlooked a fatal problem. Outside was not the Ting-Long continent, but the heaven realm. Although countless years had passed and the Great Desolation era was no more, the heaven realm had not been greatly affected by the dark turbulence. The laws of the heaven and earth had not changed much. Ji Yufei and the others had used the power of the heaven-defying divine pill to increase their cultivation and strength by leaps and bounds. If it was outside, the heaven and earth would send heavenly tribulations when their cultivation broke through. However, everyone had broken through the shackles of cultivation in Ji Yufei's inner world. This small world had not matured to the point where it could send heavenly tribulations for everyone. After discussing for a while, they decided to seal themselves. Ji Yufei had the 9 secret words of martial Dao, which could seal his emperor martial body. Yuan Hong had the 9 secret words of martial Dao, which could also seal himself. He Tian's origin was mysterious. Ji Yufei and the others still could not figure out his background. However, they had gone through fire and water together, so they had developed a deep bond. Of course, this fellow knew how powerful it was, so he also used a secret technique to seal his cultivation. Xiaoqing and Bulon had both been defeated by the old turtle. Who was the old turtle? He was the son of the supreme emperor of the dragon tribe, one of the 9 sacred dragons. The secret technique of the dragon tribe was not inferior to the sacred arts created by any supreme sage. Xiaoqing and Bulon also used the sealing technique of the dragon tribe to seal their cultivation. As for the little fatty, Jiyu Xiaofeng, he was much more relaxed. That was because he simply did not need to fear the heavenly tribulation descending upon him. Unless his cultivation had already broken through to the immortal celestial realm. The problem was that the little fatty's cultivation had not even broken through to the supreme sacred realm. He was still at the peak demigod realm. This made Ji Yufei speechless. 10 years was not a short period of time, but the little fatty's cultivation was still stuck at the demigod realm. Even Chu Liuqing's cultivation had broken through to the first layer in the past 10 years. It seemed like he had no idea how long it would take for him to reach the immortal celestial realm on his own. The 9 transformation immortal that Gu Fei had given him would be very useful. Chapter 1054. What's going on? How could this be? After everyone came out of Gu Fei's small world, they were immediately shocked by the scene in front of them. The sky was dark, and the whole world was covered in a gloomy fog. The valley no longer existed, and not even a blade of grass grew. A heart-palpitating aura of death shrouded this part of the world. There were many white bones scattered everywhere, and there was not a trace of vitality in the whole land. Look! Xiaoqing suddenly pointed to the distance and said. Everyone quickly looked in the direction that Xiaoqing was pointing. They saw that 1,000 miles ahead, the death qi soared into the sky, and there was a terrible evil aura lingering. The deathly grey qi of death mixed with black qi condensed into greyish-black clouds in the sky in front of them. Below the clouds, a huge city floated. That is, rays of blood-red light loomed above the dark ancient city. All the evil and death qi originated from the terrible city in the sky in front of them. It was a demon city full of death. The palace of the moon deities? How did it become like this? Everyone recognized the demon city floating in the sky. That demon city was the legendary palace of the moon deities that Gu Fei and the others had once broken into. What happened in the past 10 years? Gu Fei and the others could not help but be inexplicably shocked. When they entered the inner world, the palace of the moon deities was still sealed in the super divine array derived from the extreme divine array by the primordial emperor's yarn. At this time, Gu Fei and the others could not feel any fluctuations of the power of the array. Someone had actually broken the super divine array laid down by the primordial emperor's yarn. Below the giant city, the death qi was vast and mighty, and there was a blood-red demonic light flashing. There, the death qi soared to the sky, and white bones were piled up. There was actually a mountain of bones. Roar! While everyone was in shock, suddenly a roar sounded from below the giant city, and a terrible figure surrounded by death qi rushed out. It's the evil corpses of the city. How did these evil creatures come out? He Tian opened his yin-yang divine eyes and saw clearly that it was an ancient corpse wearing ancient clothes without a trace of life. When they broke into the palace of the moon deities, they were attacked by these ancient evil corpses. Gu Fei and the others were startled. They were well aware of how terrifying these evil corpses were. Among these evil corpses, there were experts who had fallen after the semisage realm. When a half-step saint fell and turned into an evil corpse, it was definitely the most terrifying evil creature in the world. The body of a half-step saint was comparable to a half-step saint tool. Even if it couldn't use all the divine abilities it had when it was alive, it could still kill an emperor-level expert. Although it was thousands of miles away, the ancient corpse seemed to have sensed the presence of Gu Fei's group. Roar! A terrifying demonic roar resounded. The ancient evil corpse released a monstrous death qi and pounced towards Gu Fei's group. Its murderous aura filled the air. A few roars could be vaguely heard from within the demon city. Yuan Hong coldly harumphed and rushed forward with the golden spirit rod in his hand. A golden divine light emitted from his body, illuminating the dark sky. The power of the metal element surged. The two clashed in an instant. Yuan Hong directly swung his rod towards the ancient evil corpse, but the ancient evil corpse didn't dodge and continued to pounce forward. Bam! The golden spirit cudgel swept across the ancient fiend corpse's waist and sent it flying. However, Yuan Hong was surprised to find that his cudgel didn't split the ancient fiend corpse into two. What a powerful body! Yuan Hong was secretly shocked. The golden spirit ape tribe's body was nourished by the metal element's energy day and night. It was as strong as a metal essence and had endless divine power. This ancient evil corpse was unharmed after taking a strike from Yuan Hong. Even Gu Fei and the others who knew Yuan Hong's strength were shocked. This ancient evil corpse was extremely terrifying. Take another strike from me. Yuan Hong quickly dodged the ancient evil corpse's attack and leaped up high. He swung the golden spirit rod with both hands and smashed it down on the ancient evil corpse's head. Boom! The golden spirit cudgel released a monstrous wave of the power of the 5 elements, and the entire void below was crushed. Rays of golden light shot out from the cudgel like divine rainbows. Even an ancient divine mountain would be smashed to pieces by this strike. They're all at the same level. They're only at the third sky of Sky Realm, but their strength is already comparable to a supreme expert. He Tian's eyes were filled with yin and yang qi. He was extremely shocked. Bam! Yuan Hong's rod fiercely smashed onto the ancient fiend corpse's head. A series of bone-cracking sounds resounded as the ancient fiend corpse's head caved in from the strike. Black liquid splattered out. Swoosh! Just as Yuan Hong smashed into the ancient fiend corpse, one of the ancient fiend corpse's sharp claws also slashed Yuan Hong's body, tearing a large hole in the clothes on his chest. Yuan Hong flew backward and dodged the attack. He felt a burning pain in his chest and couldn't help but change his expression. The ancient evil corpse's poison was not to be underestimated. He looked down and saw 3 scratches on his abdomen, but there was no blood seeping out. He secretly let out a sigh of relief. Although the ancient evil corpse's body was strong, it couldn't break through Yuan Hong's defense. The ancient evil corpse was smashed into the ground by Yuan Hong's rod, creating a large pit. However, the ancient evil corpse still walked out from the pit. Its entire head was deformed by Yuan Hong's golden spirit rod, but it still didn't lose its ability to move. It once again soared up into the sky. The ancient evil corpse seemed to have locked onto Yuan Hong and directly pounced on him. Death Qi shrouded the entire area, causing the surrounding area to darken as if it had turned into a ghost realm. Boom! The golden divine flame engulfed the heavens and earth. Yuan Hong waited until the ancient evil corpse arrived before him before spitting out a stream of divine flame that instantly enveloped the ancient evil corpse. Roar! The ancient evil corpse roared as if it was extremely afraid of this divine flame. Endless death qi spread out, but it was all refined by the divine flame. In just an instant, the ancient evil corpse was burned to ashes by the golden divine flame. Ji Yufei's group was dumbfounded at this scene. No one had expected such an outcome. Yuan Hong's divine flame was too powerful. This was the metal divine flame that could refine all metals in this world. This was a secret technique of the golden spirit ape tribe that could even burn the void. When Yuan Hong's divine flame burned the ancient fiend corpse into ashes, a series of roars came from the ancient city that was floating in the sky. Not good. The expressions of Ji Yufei and the others immediately changed. Terrifying figures appeared in the ancient city ahead of them. The terrifying existences in the city were alarmed. Without any hesitation, Ji Yufei's group retreated. Chapter 1055. The aura of death engulfed the land for thousands of miles. Ji Yufei's group flew for a long distance, but they still couldn't escape from this lifeless area. After flying for thousands of miles, they landed on a barren mountain. There were dead trees everywhere on the mountain, and the ground was bare without any vegetation. What's going on? What's going on? Everyone was shocked. How could the ancient demonic corpses in the moon deity's palace leave the moon deity's palace? What had changed inside? No one knew, and they needed to find someone to ask. However, there was no sign of life in this dead area, not even a shadow could be seen. From the city of death, several powerful and terrifying figures rushed out, chasing after Ji Yufei's group. However, after 1,000 miles, these terrifying creatures stopped. Although the ancient evil corpses could walk out of the city, they couldn't go too far. Ji Yufei's group saw many skeletons along the way, along with many broken artifacts. Obviously, these bones belonged to cultivators. A great battle had taken place in this area, causing the mountains to collapse and the earth to crack. Many people died. Among the bones scattered on the ground, some were sparkling like jade, with immortal aura lingering around them. Some were black and shiny, with strands of demonic aura flowing around them. A great battle between immortals and demons took place here? He Tian asked. I can't believe there are demonic bones here. Yuan Hong frowned. Demons were the public enemy of the world, and they seemed to have missed a great battle. Hey! Suddenly, Ji Yufei seemed to have sensed something. He soared into the sky from the peak of the mountain and flew forward. Everyone hurriedly followed. Yuan Hong seemed to have sensed something as well, and his expression became slightly strange. Boom! After flying for tens of miles, A muffled sound came from the depths of the mountain, causing the earth to tremble. Then, a black aura rushed out from the mountain. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A few dazzling rays of light chased after it. Each ray was tens of miles long, emitting a terrifying sword aura. Jiu Fei couldn't help but be moved when he saw these sword lights that even the heavens and the earth lost their color. This kind of sword light seemed to come from the same source as the sword light of the Guangqing Celestial Sect, one of the three great Dao sects of the Tenglong continent. It's the people from the Heaven Realm Dao sect, He Tian said. The sword light soared into the sky, breaking through the layers of devil qi, directly towards a devil shadow in the middle of the devil qi. The sword light was like a dragon, twisting and dispersing the devil qi in the sky. Roar! The devil shadow in the devil qi let out an earth-shattering howl, and pitch-black devil fire surged out of the devil qi, instantly drowning the three sword lights. This great demon is not simple. Yuan Hong's battle intent was like a rainbow. He stopped in the air and his eyes of fire and gold shone brightly. His gaze pierced through the demonic flames. The demonic flames soared into the sky, causing the void to distort. No one dared to get close, so they stopped in the distance. The terrifying demonic energy surged out, and the three streaks of sword light danced left and right in the demonic flames. The light gradually dimmed. A mere sword immortal dares to provoke me? Die. The tall devil shadow strode in the demonic flames, and directly punched out, blasting away a sword light. The sword light was already showing signs of weakness under the burning of the demonic flames. Now that it was punched by the devil shadow, the old Daoist wrapped in the sword light was almost blasted out, and blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. Once the unity of man and sword was broken, this old Daoist would also meet his end. Even a sword king in the mystic transformation realm is not a match for him. Jiu Fei couldn't help but be surprised when he saw this scene. This devil shadow was indeed powerful, and even the three sword kings were at a disadvantage. Yuan Qian, die! An old Daoist priest shouted. The sword light vibrated, and endless sword qi shot out from the sword light. It pierced through the void, swept away the demonic fire, and rushed towards the demonic shadow in the demonic fire from all directions. Transforming the body into a sword, myriad swords returned to the origin. The other Daoist priest shouted as well. Boundless waves of sword energy erupted from his body. His entire body became transparent, before turning into a beam of sword light. Buzz! The sword light vibrated, and the entire heaven and earth trembled. The old Daoist turned into a sword, drawing on the power of the heaven and earth. The sword light directly shattered the void, pierced through the heaven and earth, and in an instant, arrived in front of the devil shadow. Whoosh! Where the sword light passed, an arm fell off. The devil shadow roared and flew backward. Drops of demonic blood fell from the sky. This demonic blood was difficult to evaporate even with the burning sky demonic flames. The people of the Heaven Realm Dao sects really have some skills. Seeing this scene, He Tian couldn't help but admire. The Heaven Realm Dao sects were said to be the orthodoxy passed down by ancestor Wu Dao. They were the orthodox celestial way of the three realms. The three great Dao sects of the Tenglong continent were actually not passed down by ancestor Wu Dao himself. The ancestors of the three great Dao sects had only obtained the Dao sect's methods by chance, and then founded the Guangqing Celestial Sect, the Qing Sect, and the Taishan Sect. One of the ancient powers of the Tenglong continent, the archaic Dao sect, originated from the Heaven Realm Dao sects. The roots of the ancient powers of the mortal world were in the Heaven Realm, so they did everything possible to find the path to heaven and return to the Heaven Realm. Demonic blood transformation technique. The devil shadow's arm was cut off, and he was instantly enraged. He immediately used the forbidden technique of the devil path. The demonic blood spurting out from the severed arm was immediately sent flying back. Every drop of demonic blood was emitting a black demonic light, and a terrifying demonic power was rapidly condensing. Boom! Endless demonic fire surged and condensed. A 10,000 feet tall demonic shadow appeared between the heavens and the earth. The entire world was shaken by the terrifying power of the demonic shadow. The three sword lights were sealed in the abdomen of the demonic shadow. Using the demonic shadow as a cauldron, the devil shadow wanted to obliterate the three mysterious transformation realm sword kings of the Heaven Realm Dao sects. Endless demonic fire burned, and the three sword lights gradually dimmed. If we don't make a move, those three guys are going to die. Hei Tian said. Cute ancestor Hei, then make a move. The little fatty looked at Hei Tian and said with a faint smile. Ancestor Hei is still cute. When Hei Tian heard this, a few black lines appeared on the top of his head. Actually, he was not black, but the little fatty did not want to call Hei Tian martial uncle. The name Ancestor Hei was given by the little fatty. Hei Tian was speechless. He could not really argue with the little fatty. As a senior, how could he lower himself to the same level as a junior? When Chu Liuqing saw that Hei Tian was defeated, he would definitely laugh out loud. However, he did not dare to laugh now, because Hei Tian was already a half-step almighty, and he was still an immortal king of the mysterious transformation realm.